We're starting just a couple minutes late. We're going to call this meeting to order for the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Criminal Justice and Public Safety. And before we begin, we've got a published agenda for who will be talking and in what order. I do want to pass an important message along through our Appropriations Chairman as well as all the subcommittee chairs. Given that our friends on the other side of the Capitol and the House passed a budget that had inclusion of items of ongoing nature, they were around 1% above what the governor's revenue estimate was. We have to talk about what areas in your agency's budget might exist that will assist the state in identifying the 1% inefficiencies and budgetary reductions in order to get that budget back balanced. As you all know, in Georgia, we have a constitutional mandate to have a balanced budget, and it's very important to our citizens. And because of that, we've been able to maintain a AAA bond rating, and depending on the agency, have rated either the number 1, 2, or 3 top most fiscally responsible states in the union. Deadlines for all the folks that have been so gracious to put their stuff together, materials. We've got copies of that. Out of the follow-up questions that we undoubtedly will have today, we need you to get all that information that's requested back to Ms. Jennifer Boger, who's sitting right here next to me, who does all the real work, by March the 18th. So that's Tuesday. I realize that's a short runway, but we're kind of crunched for time. So if you could help us with that, we'd appreciate that. As you go through your parts of the budget, please do not take time to address the statewide spreads. That's just a waste of everybody's time. We all know what they are, and they're consistent across everyone. So we're just going to focus on the very specific changes that are outside of the norm for everybody else. Does that make sense for everybody? Wonderful. Okay. Well, we've got Senator Harbison and I'm going to give us a quick word of prayer to open up. Please bow your heads. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to come together and work as a team to solve these important budget issues for our state. And Lord, just ask you to give us your wisdom, your discernment, your humility, and grace. For it's your most holy name we pray. Amen. Okay, first one up. Our very own Department of Defense. General, we can do it one of two ways. If you want to bring some people with you to sit up front, you can, or if you just want to come to the podium, that's fine too.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll just come up here.
That'd be fine. We got millions of people watching online right now. They get to see you smiling.
I'm gonna bring these two gentlemen
And
up
that's
with me.
page 3. I'm sorry, page 1. So it's the very first part.
In the capital project.
And the capital project. So if you'll go to the capital project back to the budget, it is on your first page.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, sir, so just first of all, we're definitely excited to be here. Dwayne Wilson, I'm the Adjutant General of the Georgia National Guard. I've got Mr. Joe Farrer, the Deputy Adjutant General, Mr. Ken Lee Finlayson, who directs our DOD State Budget Office. And so honored again to just represent the 15,000 men and women that make up the Georgia National Guard. And so sir, on page 16 through 18, I think if you look at line items 122, 123 and 124. The only changes really to the budget are the DOAS insurance premium adjustments as well as the teamwork site.
Yeah, we don't need to worry about those. Yep.
So
I think we're really just going on your capital projects.
okay, so that gets us through the current state funds budget, which those are the only minor changes. The capital projects they've been the same for the last 3 years. So $12 million, which we match with federal funding, and we get after armory renovations.
Sure.
Another $4 million that we get after any kind of maintenance in our facilities as well. As you well know, our facilities, we have over 60 of them across the state, most of them built in the 1950s and 60s, and so this is a great opportunity, great return on investment, and so we're certainly appreciative. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I think we've left with you there's some documents to take a look at recent Army renovations, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, sir, as we go through this.
Absolutely. And in general, thank you to you, to the leadership, to all the men and women serving us here in the state, in the Air National Guard and the National Guard. We appreciate what they're doing. I got a question? No? No question? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I thought our esteemed Vietnam veteran and Dean of the Senate might have a question. In looking at this very quickly before you go, I've been to a couple of these facilities, and they sure do look like they're about 70 years past due on some renovations.
Yes, sir.
When you are done with this, though, I'm curious, is there a plan is there another group next year that needs rehab as well?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
so we currently about 60 facilities. We've targeted almost 50 that we want to renovate.
Okay.
At the end of this year, we'll be 22 of those complete. So all of these funds we're going to put to good use on Army renovations for the foreseeable future.
So if you could just help us, I'm sure you've got some type of tracking for years out
Yep.
to Jennifer, just to look what we're thinking about for the next few out years.
We do. We've already got a process in place for
That'd be great.
how we prioritize and select those, so we can get those to you.
Perfect.
Afterwards.
Outstanding. Again, you have a question.
Yes, sir.
Any plan for Muskogee County in that expansion you mentioned on renovation, excuse me?
Yes, sir. In all actuality, almost every county that
Every
we have
county,
that we
okay.
have an armory in, almost every county. Now, there's going to be some armies or readiness centers, just because of force structure changes that we may not renovate, but most every county is going to be going under an armory going under renovation. And so if I look at that county right now, we've got I think Brunswick, Columbus for that county, 73% complete with construction now down there.
Thank you.
So,
I do have one final question, General, if I could.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, lots of activity happening in Washington DC these days.
Yes, sir.
With different looks at budgets and personnel. Do you have any inclination of what impact that may or may not have on us here locally?
So I think I really do think that we're gonna be in a pretty decent place. The National Guard as a whole. I mean, the Air National Guard in Georgia is doing great. We have 2 wings that are currently undergoing conversion, one to C-130J, one to a new remotely piloted aircraft mission. Those missions aren't going away. We're picking up 2 cyber squadrons in the Air National Guard, so I think we're in a great place. On the Army side, manning for both the Army and the Air is great. We're doing really well with recruiting, and so I think we're really going to be in a good space to take advantage of some opportunities if there's any capability or capacity that moves, as an example, from the active component into the reserve component. So I think we're fine. We've just on the civilian employee side, federal civilian employee side, we have because of a couple of the executive orders, we've had to separate a couple of employees so far, just get within the guidelines of some reductions that are currently underway, but other than that, I don't foresee any big changes happening to the Georgia National Guard.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
General.
Okay.
Thank you all. Have a great day. We
Okay.
appreciate
No,
your
thank you very
time.
well.
Next
Very
up, Colonel Hitchens and the Department of Public Safety. Come on down. And Senator Harbison, on your tracking sheet, you're looking at page 35. Very welcome.
Colonel is good.
Yes, sir. How are you, sir?
I don't want it. I knew you had to do it.
Well, what happened here? Is there a story, Senator?
Yeah, you to tell me.
Oh, well,
I got with his dad.
Oh.
And now it's him.
Well, we only pick on the people that we love. Just remember that.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of love in this room. Colonel, please take it away, sir.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's truly an honor for us to be here today and present to y'all. For the fiscal year 2026 budget under Section 39, starting on page 35, your tracking sheets, you'll find the Department of Public Safety where you only see the statewide adjustments with the exception of our aviation program. On line 269.3, we appreciate the House recommendation to increase funds for 2 aviation mechanic positions. DPS currently has 14 aircraft with 3 mechanics. And going back to at least 2008, aviation had 5 mechanics. As part of our amended 2020 budget reductions, we went to 3 to make that work. Now we have 2 less mechanics with more advanced and complex aircraft. And just as technology in our cars has increased, so has the technology in the aircraft. Over the years, the fleet airframes have been replaced with multiple Bell 407s, 429, and a 412, which are a lot more complex than what our old aircraft were. And we're having to send out more work to private mechanics, which in turn costs more for the labor versus having a full-time position. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding this section before we move to our capital projects.
And Colonel, just to remind everyone who's listening, I remember a few years ago we started adding to build out by your new headquarters as well to have a better operation in order to facilitate that maintenance. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And we're within days or weeks of that of us actually taking ownership over that and being able to move in.
Wonderful. And we're going to have this and the full Public Safety Committee come over and lay eyes on that and those who have not seen the new building and the great work that you're all doing over there.
Absolutely.
So
And I
thank
think y'all would love it and be impressed with it.
you. Absolutely. All right. And then we're going to go to capital.
Yes, sir. Our capital projects under Section 50, starting on page 4.
Go ahead.
In the past, these have typically been part of our bond request, but this year they are being recommended as funded projects. For fiscal year 2026, we support the $1.4 million in major maintenance and repair for our facilities statewide, which is line 380.59. We benefit from the annual MMR funds to maintain and update our 89 facilities that include our post and weigh stations as needed. We also support the recommendation of $250,000 for the upgrade to the post and Waycross, which is line 380.6, which is a state-owned property that we share with DDS. And the post was constructed in 1966 and has been in use for 58 years. Typical useful life of a commercial building is 39 years, and the major issue with this building that must be addressed is the sewer line. We've had to actually rent out some porta potties to operate. We support the recommendation of $600,000 in aviation fleet major maintenance and repair funds for our aviation fleet statewide. It's line 380.61. This is a new request for FY26. The aviation budget is funding is $5.1 million, and FY26 is projected that 72% will go to personnel, 17 to regular operating, and 11 to general repairs and maintenance. And these funds will help us upgrade some of the existing fleet's outdated equipment, along with helping us cover any maintenance costs that is unforeseen during the hourly maintenance inspections that are required for aircraft. We support the recommendation of $5 million in fencing and security upgrades for our facilities statewide, line 380.62. We plan to start with our more accessible posts in the field until we get them all completed. An example of this is post 44 in Forsyth. Since the new gas station with a 24-hour truck stop has been built right next to the post, we've had 2 different instances where a tractor trailer tried to turn around under our carport and got stuck underneath the awning at the back of the building and caused damage. So it would help us be able to secure those areas and also keep people that are wandering away from our vehicles. It would help us to secure the post where the public must access the building through the front, not the back door where our equipment's located. Last, we appreciate support the funding being allocated to our attached agency, the Georgia Public Safety Training Center, for the construction of a new DPS training building and a firearms range on their property for $13.4 million. It's line 380.66. The training building will not only help DPS, but it will help GPSTC with their classroom availability with a new post-mandate expansion. The range's anticipated cost is $1.9 million. And, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'm more than willing to answer any questions you may have.
A great presentation as always, Colonel. Do you have a question?
Question, Commander. What about your mechanics? Are you having difficulty doing those aviation mechanic slots and things like that? How does that work? Is that
We don't have difficulty hiring them. We've just been restricted to 3. And with aviation, most of the things you're done with mechanic work on aviation is done by hours. So even if the product is not broken, there are a certain amount of hours that like a rotor blade can only go for so many hours. It's got to be changed. So you're kind of hamstrung in some of that. Once the hours are up, it's got to be replaced. Okay. And with only 3 mechanics, we're having to send it out to private facilities.
okay?
And we would probably still have to do some of that, but if we had these mechanics, it would help us do it in-house and cheaper.
So what's ideal, in-house?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And some things that we cannot do, that some of the avionics and all would have to still be shipped out just because of specialization.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel, and specifically I know in your support of the dollars for GIPSTIC, and you mentioned this, I'll just make sure the committee members know, we have extended, which I think is a good thing, the mandate school
Yes.
For people to become post-certified police officers. And between that and us finally getting a good more crop of filling these important positions, we're literally running out of room. So this will allow us more training for our law enforcement officials, not just for the State Patrol and motor carrier compliance, but all the others coming to GIPSTIC for that reason. And that's a big budget item I'm sure our friends at GIPSTIC will bring up as well. And you happen to have a fellow there used to work for you, I believe, who's leading that agency now, don't you?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. Mr. Whitman, all right. Any other questions for the Colonel? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Thank y'all very much.
All right.
And I'll tell your dad I saw you. You'll brag.
Next up, we've got Post Police Officer Standard and Training. Gents, that's going to be page 41 in your book. All right, let me We light you up there. Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself for all the folks back home who,
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Chris Harvey. I'm the new Executive Director of Georgia Post, sworn in January of this year.
outstanding.
My pleasure to be here in front of the committee. Post this shouldn't take much time. Post has one item that we support. It's going to be 39.9.2, and it's a request for $37,141 to create a Amazon cloud solution for Georgia Post. Currently, Georgia Post works off a physical server that's located in our building. We have no off-site backup. We have no cloud backup. If that building were to go poof, so would our data.
Sorry, Chris,
I'm
there's
sorry.
confusion. We've got different tracking numbers. For everyone, that's
Oh, I apologize.
277.2.
Oh,
that we're
yes,
talking about right now.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
The cost would be a one-time cost of $9,823 for a physical server, and then $2,276 per month for maintenance of the Amazon Web Services. The other thing that this would allow is if the building that we're in, which is not a new building, loses power or has any type of interruption, our system goes down, goes completely offline. We've worked with GTA, we've talked with them, we've developed this plan, and we believe it's really critical that we have the ability to, one, secure our data from physical calamities, and secondly, that we have the ability to have our system available for the nearly 60,000 peace officers in Georgia and hundreds of agencies that rely on that for their services. The other issues in our line are for the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police funding and the Georgia Sheriff Association funding. I've got Director Ayers and Director Norris here to speak specifically to that because, as you know, those are simply pass-through funds, and they can account for that. Are there any questions about the Amazon?
No, I think that's very straightforward, Chris. Thank you. It always scares me that that's even in place today. So the quicker we can get the business continuity and the security and other favorable things we get from cloud-based computing, the better. So, question from Senator Robertson.
Hey, Director, I think this is the first time meeting, and I appreciate you doing what you're doing. We're leasing that space you're in right now, right?
Yes, sir.
And what kind of lease do we have on that?
I'd have to get back to you on the specifics of that, sir.
Okay, I would love to know what we pay annually to lease that space and to how long that lease is.
Yes, sir.
Because we're still in the old mall, right?
The Threadmill Complex in
Threadmill
Austell.
Complex,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Okay,
And
thank
we, just so you know, I've spoken with the GBA earlier this year about finding another state facility where we could do that. But even were we in a state facility, I think it's important that we have this redundancy of cloud services.
No, I agree with the redundancy, and we're not adding fixed assets to a property that we don't own. So I think that's a positive. Bringing something like that in, we can take it with us when we leave.
Correct.
If need be. So no, I do appreciate that. Thank you.
But I will get you those numbers.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, why don't we give a chance for Butch and Terry to just say a couple quick words. Brevity is good with everybody online here, so come on up, fellas.
All right, good afternoon. Excuse me. My name is Butch Harris. I'm the Executive Director of Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. Our main mission is to provide training to police chiefs, and there's two specific OCGAs, 35-8-20.1, 35-8-20, that involve mandated training for police chiefs. I would like to ask on 27.3, that amount for $319,000 that was came from the House side. We certainly ask that you approve that as well. You talked about efficiencies, and I'd just like to say one thing, and I won't take up any more time, but since when you compare fiscal year 25 through fiscal year 2020, the number of chiefs and command staff that we actually have provided training for will increase 108.4% in fiscal 25 when compared to fiscal 2000. When you compare just to last year, that percentage went up 69.2%. We have added capacity in the classes, and we're running 5 chief school a year instead of their 4. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
You have a question?
Mr. Chairman, yeah. It's good to have you here, Butch, as always. Why did it increase 100+%? Are we are we running through police chiefs faster, or have we increased the amount of training, or police department leadership getting bigger?
I would say yes, yes, and yes. And basically, you do have some attrition with police chiefs. We also have command staff members that are attending the training, so they're preparing to become a chief. We have increased the individual capacity on each class, and we have increased the number of classes we provide by 25%.
In the past, have we not, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, in the past, have we not have been educating command staff up in order to roll into that role should something happen?
Yes. I think we have revamped the Chiefs training class. We worked with Gypstick to actually redo and validate the curriculum of that. So I think the word of mouth is getting out there as well. So there's a very high demand for that schooling. As a matter of fact, the wait list just to get into that is anywhere from 6 months to a year.
All right, and are we still pushing leadership over toward the command college at Columbus State University?
Yeah, we do support the command college.
All right, thank you.
Excellent. All right, Terry, you want to give us a quick update?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Terry Norris, excuse me, Georgia Sheriff's Association. Here today, similar to the Chiefs, on that same line, you see a little increase, or pretty good increase for the Sheriff's Association. I've been there 30 years, and my mission when I came was to make deliberate efforts to train sheriffs and deputy sheriffs and jailers on the mandates of the office. So we've kind of ventured into that area. 2024, we trained 4,612 people, sheriffs and deputy sheriffs and all, at 3,600 hours. So we do this training all over the state, in addition to our headquarters in Madison. So what we're seeking to do is get closer to the actual cost, our annual cost of the training. So this will be of help to us, and we certainly want to work with the committee on meeting some number that you all would agree to.
And thank you, Terry. And I know you and I talked earlier before we came in here. If you and Mike get back over to us that exact
Yes, sir.
number, so we can make sure we've got everything accurate. So, Senator Robertson.
Terry, always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
Are we making sure as we go through this training, and I know you and Mike discussed this, but that we don't have redundancy of what Gypstick may offer? So and believe me, you know that I understand the differences between the responsibilities of a municipal police officer and a deputy sheriff. But are we being careful to make sure that we aren't creating redundancy within 3 different training areas when we can lean into Gypstick and get some of that done, and then focus on those special areas within the Sheriff Association, Chief Association?
There certainly is some overlap on the basic jail, because there's never enough opportunities for somebody to go to basic jail. So that is one area. And we do lean into that, sheriffs do. However, on some of these specialized areas, for instance, sex offender registration, that is one of our biggest conferences annually. There's 300 folks that show up to that. That is a very complex law that sheriffs are the only one that does that.
That's right.
So we happen to have, through experience, probably the most experienced person in the state, Shelley Daniel, who leads that training. So there's that, but then we've got, of course, jail training. There's jail management training, for instance. There's the court services training. So there's some of that stuff that we can use there, but the magnitude and the number of folks that we're trying to train, Gypstick can't do it all either. So I don't think there's too much duplication.
Okay, I do appreciate that, because I don't think you'll find 3 more pro-public safety people than the 3 senators sitting up here. But to fight for you guys, we have to be able to go back and justify to make sure that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars within that training arena. So I appreciate y'all's due diligence on that.
And we like coming to your committee. This is a very good committee, one of the best.
Well,
I yield the
flattery
wellness.
will get you everywhere, Mr.
No,
Norris.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pandering will get you nowhere.
Great update. I do want to make sure everybody is listening to the work we're doing to train sheriffs, police chiefs, their command staff, the officers who are beginning for the very first time or doing CEUs in the state. Chris, very proud of you taking this position. Congratulations on your promotion. But we also disqualify more police officers than any other state because we hold them to a very high standard here in Georgia. And that's something we're very proud of because the men and women out there that are serving and protecting are the reason we're allowed to all be here today. You may say one more thing, as long as it's complimentary to Senator Robertson.
Gotta dig deep for that.
And getting post council a new location. We have a great location in Madison, Georgia, Morgan County. We have some excess property. Where you at? So we'd be glad to have that conversation. We'd love to have posts next to us. Thank you.
All right, well, you know my favorite four-letter F word is free, so. All right, moving on. It's not Senator Robertson's. Let's bring up our friends at State Board of Pardons and Parole. And to not see Rita here is just weird for me, just for the record, I know.
First session.
Absolutely.
Well, let me piggyback off of Terry Norris and say, yes, this is my favorite committee to come to. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, Chairman Albers and distinguished committee members. I am Chris Barnett, Executive Director for the State Board of Pardons and Paroles, and with me here today is Kristen Kinney, our CFO, and new Rita Rocker, Legislative Liaison, doing a great job through this session.
Yes, she is, and I just want to tell you before we start, gentlemen, that's page 34 on your cut sheets. Continue on.
Absolutely. And outside of our statewide changes, the board has one unique line item that can be found at the top of page 35 under our Victim Services Program line 251.2. And it is an increase for 2 victim advocate positions in the amount of $127,915. These 2 victim advocate positions will help support the Georgia Office of Victim Services, represented here today by one of our, or 2 of our newest members to the team, K-9 handler Mandy Kimner and Asher, a specially trained comfort dog to assist crime victims throughout the state and those impacted by trauma. A great team, and we've seen great results. A little bit about the Georgia Office of Victim Services. While it's housed here with the State Board of Pardons and Paroles, it actually provides all post-conviction victim services for the Department of Corrections, the Parole Board, and the Department of Community Supervision, really becoming a one-stop shop for all post-conviction victim services in the state of Georgia. I think it's important to note that these are not new positions. These positions have been funded at various levels through the VOCA grant since 2017. That funding has continued to be reduced, and thanks to our good friends over at CJCC, we were able to secure some emergency fundings to get us through FY25, but they indicated that we needed to secure another method to pay for these positions. That's why we're here today and asking for your favorable consideration of that one line item.
Well,
And that
Chris,
is,
first off, thank you to you and Kristen for the great work you're doing. I know that every time I have a question or something I need some more clarification on, you all literally will respond in seconds of calling, so we appreciate the responsiveness. A couple questions, though. For the victim services first, how many advocates, victim service advocates do you have in total right now?
So, as of today, we have 6 state funded,
Okay.
2 grant funded, and then each of the agencies that we spoke of, the Department of Corrections, Department of Community Supervision, and the Parole Board contribute additional positions, 2 from each and 3 from parole. So all total, we have 15 victim advocate positions, and we have over 30,000 active registered victims, and we're adding about 3,000 each year.
And what's the salary, starting salary for those type of positions?
$38,157.60.
I'm going to guess, based on experience, education, et cetera, that that's a pretty low dollar figure for someone to do such an important job.
Absolutely. You know, we've been very blessed to attract great folks. Many of the folks that we bring in not only have a bachelor's degree, but have a master's degree, and a couple of them working on their doctorate. But with that, they gain that work experience, and it's hard for us to keep them at that level. And so we find them coming and getting that experience and then using that experience in other areas.
Have we gone to look and classifying the job and the duties in recent years to make sure that
I think we're always looking for opportunities of how we can enhance that starting pay and attract the quality folks that we need. And more on the other side is to retain those when we get them into place.
Well, why don't we plan off session to work with Jennifer and OPB to make sure we're taking care of those folks doing such a great job for us. I do want to direct you back, though, even though it's a $0 line item, to 250.2. If you could talk a little more about that. I realize it's going to be using internal funds, but want to understand just a little more about what SBPP's plan of action is.
Absolutely, and this is in regards to the international offenders currently being housed within the Department of Corrections and identifying those nonviolent international offenders that we could transfer to the custody of ICE for deportation proceedings. We currently have an agreement with ICE and Department of Corrections called the REACT, where we're already filtering those nonviolent offenders towards ICE for deportation proceedings, and if for some reason they are not deported, they are brought back before the board, and that knowledge is shared for an additional decision. I think this just further enhances that we're going to take a look at the entire system again, identify those individuals, and see if there's any further opportunities to enhance that operation or procedure that's already in place.
And just to clarify, that's going to be for nonviolent?
Nonviolent, that is my understanding.
Okay. Questions from the committee members? All right, let's start with Senator Harbison. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
just briefly, how many people are we talking about?
You know, I have not
A
seen
rough
the numbers yet. There may be as many as 800 international offenders. Now, whether those are violent, nonviolent, or otherwise, I also would refer to my friends over at the Department of Corrections. They may have additional numbers because they're working those numbers as we speak.
Thank you.
All right. Senator Robertson.
Yeah, two things real quick, Director. You said 2 were state funded, 6 of your victim witness advocates. 6 were state funded, 2 were grant funded, and what did you tell me the departments were giving you?
So each department, again, because they provide.
Department of Corrections?
Yeah, Department of Corrections provides 2 people. Department of Community Supervision provides 2 people, and the Parole Board is currently providing 3 people, for a total of 15 folks.
Okay, and the ones that the district attorney's office uses, they disengage once the case is adjudicated, is that right?
Right, it's a warm handoff from the pre-conviction to the post-conviction.
Okay, so what we're looking at, and basically 6 of them, I guess, you said the parole board gave you 2 or 3?
So Parole Board provides 3
3.
currently.
Right.
Department of Correction does 2, and Department of Community Supervision.
So 7 of them are paid for by other departments?
That is correct.
And basically loaned across to you to use as you see? So their funding impacts their ability up to some point, because this is basically a memorandum of understanding type relationship, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Again, it's an opportunity for all 3 agencies to.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I really do, and I see that. My concern is, we've got 159 counties that have crime victims in them, and we're looking at this number right here. And how long do you stay engaged with these crime victims, especially those with violent crime committed against them?
There's no cutoff. Now, certainly, on paper, when they finish their sentence, that would end, their active engagement. However, we don't turn away any victim, regardless of the status of that case. We will continue to provide services or resource referrals anytime we're called.
Yeah, I get letters every so often about somebody coming up for a parole hearing or something like that, somewhere where I'm listed on the list. Usually it's somebody who's murdered a law enforcement officer or something else. What is y'all's engagement in victim services when it comes to the Secretary of State's office looking at compensating individuals who have been released from prison, their cases, retries have been non-pros, and they reach in to seek funding for their time inside the prison? Do they engage you guys to make contacts with victims of the crimes that were the result of these individuals being convicted at all?
We have not been engaged in that process.
And throughout the time you've been there, no one's ever reached out to you that you know of to reach and communicate with these victims?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions from the committee members? All right, thank you so much for all the great work you're doing there.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
All right, next up, GEMA, Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security. We should give them some walk-up music, absolutely, for the great work they're doing, and another State Patrol training moved up and promoted. Love to see this. It's going to take me a while not to call you Lieutenant Colonel, but Director Lamb, we are thrilled and proud of you for taking this new position and this team. And we would love to hear from you. Just for the folks here on the committee, this is going to be page 19 in your cut sheets.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's always an honor to be before the committee and always a pleasure to see you. As you stated, I've been recently appointed as the Director of GEMA and Homeland Security, and it's so new, in fact, that I brought my Deputy Director of Finance with me to give the budget presentation, because at this moment, he's far more knowledgeable and informative than I am. So,
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Thank you for your letting us come before you today.
You can use either microphone.
Okay. As far as the straight budget slides, you'll notice we don't have anything in the cut sheet, so HB 68's line came across just as our straight baseline budget with no additions to that. However, there were two issues that came before you in the amended that y'all were supportive of, and I just wanted to give you an update on those two issues for your consideration. The first is the advancement of the next generation 911 system. In the amended 25 budget, y'all approved $5.75 million to go towards the initiation of that work through the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority. Mrs. Rucker Wright's the Deputy Director of that organization, so she's up here if you've got any detailed questions for that. As you'll see on the slide, HB 68 moved, there's no funds moved forward to y'all's consideration on that. So just wanted to make sure you were aware, and the work that we've done shows the pending onward funding required for the fulfillment of that system becoming fully implemented at approximately $20 million on an annual basis. And the topics listed there at the bottom are what would be funded by those topics should that get moved forward. So just information only for the committee.
Certainly, and we do have a couple other quick questions. In the budget on 186.2, there is legislation about creating a resilience office after the recent challenges we've had with Hurricane Helene and others. And I know there's not $0 associated with that right now, but do you have any thoughts, ideas of what that may or may not look like?
Yes, sir. All of the headed segments that are listed in the bill are functions that currently already exist inside the agency, inside our Department of Community Recovery. All the titles are not exactly the same, but there is the statewide Georgia Emergency Operations Plan, a statewide mitigation plan, and a state recovery plan that are already in place, and offices with the responsibilities of keeping those updated and doing work associated with those. So the functions listed in there currently exist inside the organization.
That's music to our ears. Other question, and this may have started in the wrong side of the budget, candidly, and we'll have to see how it vets out at the end, but the school safety grants are something that you administer, which is, if you looked, it's not necessarily within our budget here. It's in the education budget under 164.2. Can you talk about how you will administer those grants? And I know we passed the legislation to make sure the schools had submitted their safety plans and done all that work, making sure that there's good accountability for what they're doing, but also how they're using those funds.
Yes, if I could,
Please.
the next slide we've got here is relative to the two things that were forwarded in the amended budget. Again, where there was $1.5 million moved forward for a combination of two items. One is the development of let me make sure I read it to get the words right, the statewide school and student safety database established, and that is specifically for the sharing of information relative to youth that are having issues and having potential behavioral issues that are noted by a myriad of different organizations, so that information can be collected and it can be shared from school system to school system as a youth may move
Now, let me
around.
ask a question on that. So today, we have a lot of different databases set up in the state. In the Department of Education, they have what's called the longitudinal database, which has got all the information of students, tracking them through kindergarten through graduation.
Yes.
Do we need to create yet another brand-new database and not have that in the same place?
My understanding of that, Senator, is that the longitudinal database that you refer to is primarily focused on academic records for the youth, but not necessarily all the behavioral aspects and the notes and things that could come from the school counselors or other organizations that the youth may become involved with. So the intent of this updated statewide database is a repository for multiple organizations to be able to put information in there, and it could be accessed. Again, not criminal activity relative to the youth, but simply their behavioral patterns and concerns.
And, well, one of my concerns is what's in the database for the schools today is when an A student becomes a D student automatically, when they start having chronic absenteeism they haven't had in the past, all the other signs that tie into the other things we have. And my concern is if we silo all this data, we're not using the data for what it's truly meant to be, which is to catch potential problems and help give a hand up before it's too late.
And understand, and the segue I would make into that, if you don't mind, is the behavioral threat and assessment management tool, training and tool that is associated with that. That is work that our staff have already started doing with our Homeland Security coordinators, and we've actually dedicated one individual officer to lead that program across the state. So we've developed a core training program, but this funding will allow us to have additional emphasis on running that training across the state and hopefully prepare the school systems themselves to better utilize the tool that's potentially becoming available to them.
I think one of the follow-ups we'd like to see from this committee meeting before Tuesday is, are you going to have a connection between those? What type of script or algorithms are we going to be using to make sure that we're connecting all of that important information? Obviously, we talk a lot about the artificial intelligence and other things here, running that across multiple things that sometimes the naked eye can't pick up. A teacher, a school administrator, one of the great people working at GMA, or even our local law enforcement always see a snapshot. And I think until we see the entire picture for what's going on in that child's life is the only way we're truly going to get ahead of those problems.
Yes, understand. And we'll make sure to try and get the connectivity information back to you.
Thank you. Okay. Questions from the committee members? Yeah. Go ahead, Senator Robertson.
I haven't seen the HB 68 funding, the $24 million, and that's the money needed right now. Where are you at on the system right now?
With the database, it is still in developmental process, Senator. The training, the behavioral threat assessment training is actually ongoing already.
I've been a part of the threat assessment training at a conference y'all did in Columbus last year, and it's great training, and I appreciate that. But who's building the database?
I do not have the company name.
Okay, so this is an RFP that went through the bid process, and they are building a proprietary program, or are we buying something that is off the shelf that has been
The
proven?
intent is a modification of an off-the-shelf program.
I think your lawyer may be running up here to help you right now.
There we go. Perfect.
Hey, I'm Anna Burton, General Counsel for GMA Homeland Security, and currently we do not have an RFP yet, so there's no company to build the database yet. When the legislation passes, if it passes, then we'll go out for RFP.
So is this money being asked for prior to the RFP?
Yes, sir, but as you see, it goes to the Department of Education, does not go to
No,
GMA.
I understand that, and it goes to the Department of Education to pay for
Part of the database.
part of
yes,
the
sir.
database that we haven't decided what should look like yet, or have we completed the RFP?
No, we have not completed the RFP because we didn't want to get ahead of the legislation being passed.
So this is an estimate.
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
And one other question, we have the GBI threat assessment process going through GSAC and that database as well. So it gets back to my concern. Threats coming in through see something, send something. We got calls coming in, et cetera, over here. Then we got what's coming at the local PD. Then we got the longitudinal database, and now we're going to add yet another database. I will tell you, I've got big concerns about us not leveraging one of those tools we have already, and then making sure the integration is there. So, again, this is a follow-up for us, and we'll need that. I know this is tough timing, but by Tuesday.
Well, and look, I appreciate the fact that you have a new GEMA director coming in at the beginning of this. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for Director Lamb. He is true blue, and I appreciate that. But my concerns are the same as Chairman Albers, and should be the same in any other committee, are we duplicating? And then my other huge concern is the more we silo this data information, the more opportunities we set up for a breach. And the phrase I heard, and I appreciate where it came from, are notes from a counselor. Well, these notes from a counselor are very, very important things, and that because we do have children in our system that have problems, but we certainly will not solve any of those problems if we let this information get out to where it should not be. And so I think my concern is there is no RFP yet, and we'll get there. It's just guesstimates scare me, and 100% with Chairman Albers on too many databases.
Yeah, and I can answer some of the questions that you posed before. Ideally, how the database would work is some of that information that you were talking about, the grades, the absentee, would be indicators that the behavioral threat assessment management team would be telling people at the local school level to be looking for, and that information would then be potentially sent up in a threat assessment to the database. So they could say, you know, this is what we're seeing with this student, 15 days absent, his grades have plummeted. Is there anything that you see in S3 database, which would be a compiled information of, say there's something from DFACS, say there's something from DJJ, and they could say, yes, we actually do have something on that student, and then send that information to the threat assessment team at the local school. So that's how they'd kind of interact.
So we'd have somebody mining from multiple databases is what we would do to try to come up with a comprehensive profile of a student
So
or an individual with certain behaviors.
Yeah, so ideally, and I'm not a tech person, and we haven't gone out for RFP yet, but the software would be integrated with other software platforms, which would be based off memorandums of understanding with other agencies to say this is the information we're willing to share, so it goes in the database. So it's kind of hopefully done to some extent in real time.
Okay, thank you. And could I ask one quick question back to the first slide? The 5.7, I apologize, the next slide. The 5.750 and the 20, will that get us to where we need to be on next gen?
That's the very, very beginning.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That gets us to where?
So the $5,750,000 falls within the estimated cost range for implementing Next Generation 911, whereas the $20 million figure that you're looking at is an annual reoccurring managed service contract.
So 5.7 will get us started, and then reoccurring costs of 20 per year to maintain the system.
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Thank y'all.
Wonderful. Other questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you for the great work you did. And before you do leave, what we've been living through the last couple of years with everything from natural disasters to rioting and things of that nature, GEMA's been on the front lines of all that stuff and done a superb job. So thank you to all of you for your hard work.
Thank you very much, and we'll get back with you on all the queries.
All right, next up, we're going to do Department of Community Supervision, or DCS as we call them. That's all the way back on page 2 in your cut sheets. Committee members? 2. All right, Commissioner Nail.
I'm right here, sir.
All right, got you on. Go right ahead.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We have 3 items coming before you today. The first one is actually Section 18. It may be page 1, line 110.3.
It is.
Okay. This is to increase the funds for the Milledgeville office lease. I believe you've already heard the details of it, but in essence, we're already moved into that office. And this would just be for the budgeting of that year for that lease. If you'll recall, it's an 8-county circuit, very large circuit, but this was a building we were leasing from the Department of Corrections for $1. And that property was identified as a depreciating asset. So anyway, in other words, we had to go find a new place to live. So that's what those the funding of $133,000 is. Second item, under our operating budget, 110.4 in the amount of $9.5 million. This is to cover the shortfall, if you will, of having to hold positions. It's a good problem to have, and what I say that is we are always grateful and appreciative of the pay increases, especially for law enforcement and our sworn staff. And at this time, we're having to hold positions to meet budget on those. So we would ask that that be made whole so we can continue to hire positions. Just as an example, right now, we're at 116 cases per officer. We would project that it would go to 130 and then 150 by December 25 without this. We have worked tirelessly to reduce our caseloads, keep them around 100, although I will tell you that is still too high. That's one of the highest in the nation. But we do feel that it is critical to keep those cases low. We have a couple things competing against us. The courts continue to increase their intake at the backside of COVID, if you will, so our intakes are gradually increasing, and we're back to the point where those that are leaving and exiting, they're not doing it at the pace in which we're getting cases. So that would be the ask there.
And if I could, Director, just to make sure everybody's clear, in the past, we had so many vacancies for the last few years that we were unable to fill. We were using those dollars to help fund the pay raises that the Senate has led on consistently for our law enforcement officers. This is now part of a catch-up now that we have those positions filled to make sure we've got it. I noticed some of these are technology positions as well. Can you give us a little understanding of what these positions are specifically?
Yes, sir, I can. In regards to the technology, we are a multi-agency provider and also service to not just pardons and parole, but also to the GBI and also to the Georgia Commission on Family Violence. In essence, we're looking at 6 staff were reduced at IT. Another staff for data services was reduced. So in essence, 7 positions are being held vacant over there to meet those. And these are critical positions as you talk about business analysts, developers, quality assurance specialists. Those are the 3 categories.
And I'm going to assume that having this type of data being utilized properly and putting the right tools upon us is going to help us to, again, just like we talked about for school safety, but track and stay ahead of the potential problems we're currently supervising. Is that
absolutely accurate? It is the crux of what we do to effectively supervise the offenders that are under our watch.
Fantastic. And I want to again thank you all for the times that I've needed a question or clarification. Again, you respond literally in real time, and I appreciate that the type of service. So, questions to committee members on that one? All right. Anything else?
All right. Just one other thing, and that's our Columbus Day Reporting Center, new construction. As you may or may not be aware, Columbus is a 6-county circuit. We have a day reporting center there that has a census of about 100 individuals. Literally, we are on top of each other. When you talk about criminogenic needs and fidelity of programming, our classes are too full with the space that is there. So, and our concern is we're to the point now we're going to have to reduce the class sizes. And if we do that, that hinders the judiciary. This is a viable alternative for them in lieu of prison. So we absolutely wanted to divert who we can from prison to these treatment programs. So we approached the State Properties Commission, and they came back, and their assessment is, in essence, over the long haul, you're going to be cheaper to build than you are to lease in that particular area due to the amount. So that is the request. We have about just over 50 staff that are assigned to that office.
Very good. I figured Senator Robertson would want to know what the
I want to make sure we're talking about the same piece of property. Where's the current property at?
It's Second Avenue?
Yes, that would be that. And is that where the intent is, to build something down there?
No, sir.
Okay. I was going to say the property value down there is
Very high.
absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
Okay. So have y'all located any property, or?
We've located various potential sites.
Various potential sites, okay.
We didn't want to get our cart before the horse, sir.
Ma'am, you would be the first State Department not to get your cart before the horse, so I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, on that note, any other questions? Thank you to the men and women who serve as well. I think people sometimes don't realize the important work that DCS do on a daily basis, but we sure do.
Yes, sir. And I don't hope this is the last time we'll present for this session, but I do hope this is the last time we present. What I wanted to say is thank you to the committee members. We appreciate your support of DCS and law enforcement as a whole. I can assure you, when you look at our retention numbers and the increase, what you all did has significantly helped us to accomplish our mission. I just personally want to say thank you to each and every one of you for that.
Well, Commissioner, as long as these folks up here are still in the Senate, I can promise that'll always happen.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to move on next to our accountability court judges. That's page 27 in your cut sheets.
Good
Judge
afternoon.
McBurney, great to see you.
Good to see all of you. Different setting. Thank you for taking a moment to hear about the Council of Accountability Court Judges. I'm going to take a quick moment of personal privilege to echo what you just said. DCS does amazing work, and the pay increase has brought us in Fulton County better staffing, more staffing, and it's had a big impact. So thank you for that.
Excellent.
But that's not what I'm here for. I am one of the judges on the CACJ's Executive Committee, so it's my job to get this presentation rolling. Seated to my right is Taylor Jones, our Executive Director, and to my right's right is Josh Bechter, the Director of Technical Assistance. In case you ask hard questions, he's here for those. I want to remind you all of what CACJ does and what accountability courts do, and then the budget presentation, which is short and sweet, will come from Ms. Jones. CACJ provides oversight and technical guidance to all of the accountability courts in Georgia: adult felony drug courts, veterans courts, DUI courts, family treatment courts, and most recently, thanks to legislation passed last year, juvenile treatment courts. We ensure that you get the same level of care and treatment across the state. We also ensure that people adhere to the standards, and if they aren't, or their census drops below what we expect it should be, we can handle that with funding regulation. So it's the oversight, the guidance, and the control to make sure that accountability courts do what they're supposed to do in Georgia. And what is that? That is treatment for people who are working through substance abuse issues and or minor mental health issues. This is not Georgia Regional, but especially people with co-occurring disorders where they're struggling with an addiction issue, there could be a mental health issue. Accountability courts are there as an alternative to jail and really as a treatment option. But it is accountability court. You are given the opportunity to participate. If it doesn't go well, there are consequences. Not eligible for accountability courts are serious violent felons, sex crimes, people like that. It is criminal activity driven by the addiction, so property crime and possessing illegal substances. We've been very successful over 10 years. This is our 10th anniversary. We look forward to celebrating that, and it's been made possible by the generous funding of the legislature, and we're hoping that we can keep that going. Our budget request is actually fairly small, and it's driven by success. Our censuses are up around the state, and we added this new component of the juvenile treatment courts, and so the bulk of what we're asking for is funding that will allow us to continue to grow, treat people, divert them out of the prisons where it's much more expensive to house them than it is to treat them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Judge. Well, good afternoon, Chairman and members. As part of our presentation today, you've got some teal folders that includes our most recent annual report that talks about the work of the council and highlights some of our performance measures, and also some documentation around our request before you here today. Like I do every year, I do like to give you some highlights from that annual report. I think it's important to report our data to you. So last year, we saw our courts serve 8,307 participants through an accountability court program. Since fiscal year 13, we have served over 38,000 Georgians through one of our programs, something that we're continuing to be proud of and continuing to see that number grow each year. Our recidivism rates continue to be low compared to other traditional sentencing methods. For a mental health court graduate, just looking at one of those folks as an example, 3 years post-program completion, we're seeing the recidivism rate as low as 24.3% for a new felony offense. And when you look at a compared population who did not participate in a mental health court, we're looking at 55.5%. So that's a significant difference. We continue to be more cost-effective. We saw last year that for every one state dollar that was invested in one of these programs, we saw $6.60 saved. And we know that at a conservative cost at $75 per day, it's costing the state approximately $27,000 to house someone in one of our prisons. And we can serve them through a state grant at a low cost of $33,407 annually. So there's a significant savings there. So to start with our line items, I'm going to go ahead and just jump to 229.2, which provides for a recommended amount of $155,375 to implement juvenile treatment courts per House Bill 873 from last session. That money would help us to provide the technical assistance that's required by House Bill 873, and that would come in the form of foundational or operational juvenile court treatment training, and then evidence-based training and risk assessment training for the folks that are actually providing those services to the participants.
And Taylor, I don't want to interrupt your flow,
Sure.
but if we go through each one at a time, I see the original amount was kind of the bare minimum from the governor's office, and the House bumped that up, obviously, to get to where it was. Was that a request that was just pared down originally, or was this something that happened along the budgeting way?
We had initially made a higher request, and my understanding is that amount of $17,250 was to help with the risk assessment piece, but not the other pieces.
Okay, all right.
Also, part of that money would help us to support a training coordinator position. We've got one young lady who's supporting the training needs of the 171 adult accountability courts, and this year alone, we are supporting 40 trainings across the state in addition to our statewide conference, which last year we saw 1,426 attendees. I call that the accountability court community.
All right.
So to jump to the next line item, which is going to be 229.3.
Okay.
You'll see a recommended amount of $1,344,476. Again, last year we saw our courts grow from 184 total programs to now 188. We saw that 8,307 participant increase from the previous fiscal year. So that's about 11.3% more participants that we served, or 843 more folks. And that amount, that 1.3, would help us to serve those additional participants. But in actuality, if you look at the total cost per participant at the 11.3% increase, that's a $4.1 million amount. But we're not here to ask you for that today.
And while we're on 229.3, can you tell me the number of individuals we have currently serving in the Coweta Veterans Treatment Court?
I do not have the exact number for Coweta with me today, but Josh can probably look it up on his phone.
All right. Well, if not right now, just a follow-up, just a curiosity for us.
Sure.
And then how many individuals you anticipate will leave and go through that court based on the fact we have West Georgia and Coweta set up? So some are going to naturally go and split up.
Based on the information they provided to me at the start of the budget process in July, they anticipated 5 folks that would need to come over, 5 veterans from Coweta to West Georgia, and then they identified some additional folks in their judicial system, in their jail, that would be able to be served, and they were hoping to serve at least 10 people their first year, is what they've communicated to us.
Thank you.
So looking back at that 11.3% increase by the average cost per participant, it's about a $4.1 million number, but we're not asking for that. And the reason that we're not asking for that is that we did apply for and were awarded an opioid crisis abatement trust grant from DBHCD in the amount of $1,653,432 for 1 year. And then we saw 8 of our courts apply for some of that regional funding, and they received an amount of $1,386,795. So what we're asking for, coupled with that amount, helps us to get to that 4.1. We do have 3 adult courts that is also wanting to see some increase as part of that $1.3 million number we're asking for your consideration for today. The Mountain Judicial Circuit, last session, Banks County was added to their circuit, and they'd like to serve folks in Banks County who had not been readily served by the Piedmont Circuit. West Georgia Judicial Circuit, going back to them and their Veterans Court, they'd like to see that established in that new circuit. And then the Coweta Judicial Circuit itself, with their established drug court and Veterans Court, would like to be able to serve mental health court folks. And our last line item, 229.4, is a recommended amount of $152,680, and that's for new and existing juvenile treatment courts. Clayton County would like to start a juvenile treatment court program, and then Chatham and Henry have got existing programs, but Chatham wants to add additional mental health court services to that program, and then Henry would like to add substance abuse treatment to their existing juvenile mental health court, which is focusing on mental health at this time. So we always are thankful for your support and you listening to us here today. Of course, we're happy to answer questions. Judge McBurney, anything to finish out?
The answer?
We don't have the number yet, but we're working on it.
All right.
We'll
Real
get it
time.
to you.
That's fine.
Maybe not real time like DCS, but we'll get it to you.
Well, first, let me just say thank you. This is my 15th year serving, and I think this is one of the most powerful and impactful things we have done during that time. And I tell folks each and every meeting we have here, and I'm going to remind them again, if you have not gone to an accountability court graduation, it is to your loss and detriment. Two things. Be prepared to be wowed and amazed, and bring a box of tissues. Because if you don't have a wet eye, you're going to be one of the only ones. So it's fantastic work. Questions to committee members? Yes, Senator Harbison.
I'd just like to say, also echo some of the sentiments of the chair. I'm just very proud to be one of the primary sponsors of the establishment of the accountability courts in the state of Georgia. It's just I don't say that much. As a matter of fact, I never said it, but it's just really gratifying to hear your comments and reports and things like that, how well it's doing, and with the addition of the juvenile aspect of it. It's really great work, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for being one of the founders.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, Senator James, go right ahead.
I want to just add to what my colleagues, the Dean of the Senate just said. I too was here and helped to start some of the accountability courts. And I know the drug court too out there in Douglas County. That's one of my 4 counties that I represent, is doing real well. So all that you just told me, I came in late because I've been to so many other meetings, but I am so glad that y'all is succeeding. And I definitely want to stand with my chairman in trying to push forward and make sure you get everything that you need, because it is helping so many. And then especially the younger people, they don't stay in the pipeline and go on and stay there forever. You know, and the recidivism rate has gone down. So thank you very much.
All right. Welcome. Yes, Senator Robertson.
And I guess this goes to Judge McBurney. And currently, there's a piece of legislation that moves the $6,000 supplement that counties give to Superior Court judges. Do you think there's any danger of Superior Court judges not wanting to be involved as much in the accountability courts, or do you think they're so vested into it that they're there?
The latter, and our issue, and most of the major, I can't speak to some of the smaller counties, the major metro counties, there's always been enough judicial interest. That supplement was put into place, and you probably remember this, more to get them established in places where they weren't established. But it balanced it out by giving that supplement to every circuit that had one. But for many of the circuits, it was already there. It was a recognition of the work that had been done, but it was almost a fertilizer to see if we could spread accountability courts into jurisdictions that lacked them. Maybe because a judge felt, how am I going to invest this extra time, or what's in it for me? I don't view it that way. What's in it for me is the graduations and the changings of the lives, but I would not worry about that. If the judicial compensation bill goes through, judges ought not to be complaining about the salary they make, because it's going to make for a whole new landscape for Superior Court.
Yeah, in my mindset is that we all do it for the right reason.
Correct.
And the right reason is not a $6,000 supplement.
No.
But as we debate things in the Capitol, at times we are surprised where someone's loyalty lies. So I just wanted to make sure as we move forward through this minefield that we have a clear picture of what we're dealing with.
Right, that's not one of your mines. There are others out there, but that's not one of them.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you again for the excellent
Thank you.
work. We appreciate it. Next up, we've got CJCC, our Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. You can just back up 2 pages on your cut sheets to page 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I always want to call you representative still. And
I
it's been-
understand.
And how many years has that been?
It's been 12 years.
Wow.
12 years. I was thinking, as Chairman Harbin was speaking, and this isn't about my budget, but I had the honor of being the House sponsor of the bill that codified mental health courts. And to be able to go from there to now overseeing the agency that provides the management of those grants, it's pretty fulfilling to be able to be on both sides of that.
That's treasures in heaven, my friend. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We do have some material, if it'd be okay to pass out to the to the
Certainly
committee
can,
members.
yes.
Always an honor to come before your committee, Mr. Chairman. I do want to, if I may, before I get into the budget, just briefly touch on where we are with VOCA and give you a little bit of an update. As you know, this has been an issue for 5 or 6 years that we've been dealing with. I haven't had a chance to come before the committee this year to thank you all for the funding last year to help offset those cuts. I believe it was $25 million altogether, and we certainly appreciated that very, very much. The governor, OPB, has been very helpful. A lot of things have happened over the last 5 years to where we have been able to maintain consistency with our grant awards. This is in your material. I'm not going to spend much time with it, but it is in your material that we just passed out. We have been awarding in the neighborhood of $114, $113 million a year in total funds. That's VOCA, ARPA, VAWA, FISPA. That's all of the funds that program funds that we've been awarding out of. October 1 this year, it will go from 113 to 82. So there will be some challenges out there for our programs. The ARPA funds that are out there are good through September 30th of 2026. I was talking with one of our partners at an event Tuesday night. They have budgeted their ARPA funds to where they have, will still have those ARPA funds next year. Programs that have done that, which we encourage them to do, won't be facing the challenges that others will, but there certainly could be some challenges this fall. I will say, based on the House budget that passed this week in Congress, the cap on VOCA was set at $1.9 billion. Who knows if that remains through the process? We know how that always goes. But that's up from $1.2 billion cap. So the award that we got last year of $25 million, roughly, may be $43 million this next year if this holds. Again, we don't know if it will, but if this holds, that also will help with this hole that we have with our VOCA funds. There's a lot of uncertainty with our programs, obviously, not just from what's been going on historically, but some of the other concerns with federal funding right now as well. To our budget, page 25, line 228.3, you funded in the amended budget human trafficking hotline. I won't go into any details unless you'd like for me to on this, but this brings the human trafficking hotline into our shop, provides a couple of advocates to help make sure those phones are being answered. What happened last summer actually, we found out that one of the lines was not being answered, and we've had CJCC staff answering one of those hotlines since August of last year, and it's primarily been one employee handling almost all of it 24/7 since August of last year. So this brings it in-house and gives us a little bit more opportunity to make sure that these lines are being answered. And that's a critical service for the state. That is, again, line 228.3. I skipped one, 228.2, $400,000 for the Receiving Hope Center. The Receiving Hope Center is one of our receiving centers for minor human trafficking victims. We have been funding that with a combination of VOCA, ARPA, about 4 or 5 different TANF, about 4 or 5 different programs funding that. The ARPA funds are going away. This $400,000 replaces the ARPA funds that are going away to ensure that we're able to continue providing those services at the Receiving Hope Center. Line 228.4, the House added $8.125 million to help offset the loss of VOCA funds to provide core services for victims of crime.
And based on what you just said a few minutes ago with the continuing resolution for the budget in Washington, D.C., if that does in fact come in more healthy, will these funds be needed?
It depends on where you want to be as a state in funding those victim services. If we want to continue, and Georgia's made some incredible strides over the last 5 years, 10 years, last 10 years, in making sure that we have consistent victim services that are victim-centered and trauma-informed around the state. We filled in a lot of gaps where either there was no services at all. Picture a deputy putting a rape victim in the back of a cruiser to drive her 2 hours to a sexual assault center for a rape kit. That's not really what you want to do with that rape victim at 2 o'clock in the morning. Those are the kind of things that were happening 10 years ago in the state of Georgia. We've been able to fill in those geographical gaps considerably. There's still maybe a few where it's not quite as close as we'd like for it to be, but we've done a really good job with that over the last 10 years. We also had areas where the service might be there, but it might be a subpar service. Maybe not the same kind of service that you could expect to get in Atlanta, for example. So we've closed those geographical gaps, and we've closed those quality of service gaps over the last 10 years. If we want to maintain that, the $18 million more that we would be getting from the federal government, providing we get that, would mean instead of a $30 million decrease in funding in October 1, we would have a $12 million decrease in funding beginning October 1.
All right.
So to answer that question, it really depends on where you want victim services to be going forward.
Fair enough.
Page 26, line 228.5, $750,000 to implement the Georgia Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Advisory Board. This is a board that was established by statute last year, if I remember correctly. One of the things that we did in the process last year was make sure we get subject to appropriation in there because this sets up a grant fund for us to provide grants for similar to the drug task forces, grants for task forces to go after motor vehicle crime in those jurisdictions where it is a significant issue. Atlanta area, it is a significant issue. This money was put in the budget by the House in order to provide the beginning funds for that motor vehicle crime prevention advisory board.
That's a mouthful. And I've already mentioned this. What's that? What line was that? We are on 228.5 on
page 26.
Page 26. I was actually talking to a couple of my friends over here earlier today. I actually carried that legislation in the Senate, and the talking points were, and not to worry, we'll never ever use any state funds for this. That was literally part of the talking points. This will all be funded from outside grants, et cetera. Now we're being told we actually have to seed it, then we're hoping to get some grants down. So I do have some concerns with this. I'm going to be perfectly candid, and I express it to our friends out here as well. If we come before the legislature and pass a bill and say this will never have to do with any state funds, and we come back the next year and go, just kidding, we need them, then we're not doing our jobs. I would like to see us get a whole bunch of outside grants, see how well it's working, and then see if it makes sense to invest state dollars, not vice versa. So, keep going.
And it was, page 26, 228.6, 33,558 for operations. And that is everything.
And helping out a great leader who's been here for a long time.
Thank you. I
All
appreciate
right.
that.
Let's see, I think that's everything on your list. First off, thank you. Again, we've been working together on this for, I think, most of the time you've been doing this job in leadership, and
Yes.
you've definitely taken it to a whole new level.
Thank you.
I also want to appreciate the passion of the people that work for you. They are so laser focused on helping those who've been impacted in crimes, and all too often I see us talking about the criminals and the convicted convicts,
Right.
as opposed to talking about the most important, which those who are impacted by those crimes. So
Right.
Jay, thank you to you and your entire team for the work that you're doing. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I appreciate that. And one of the things that stood out to me when I first got to CJCC, I met with every staff member for 20 minutes before I even took the position, because I knew that I was going to be appointed. And the thing that stood out to me in those meetings was that passion of the employees. Many of them, in spite of the work that they do every day, in the evenings they're working at nonprofits, and they're volunteering here, they're volunteering there. Just amazing people. Let me also add, you're talking about the victims. We now have the VINE, the victim notification system that is up, and it is being more counties are being added on a regular basis. This is a statutory required, constitutionally required, actually through Marcy's law and through the Data Exchange Board, to have a statewide system that notifies victims real time from the point from the very beginning, not waiting until prosecution or adjudication, but and this particularly comes in handy with domestic violence situations. And just Saturday, as I'm coming home, I've been in Marietta visiting with my daughter and her family. Coming home Saturday, 5 miles from my house, we see the police and the ambulance and a road's blocked. A retired state trooper, his daughter, an off-duty Chickamauga City police officer that was in the home, all killed by the estranged husband of the daughter. He took his life. Those are the kind of things early in the process. This one was a little bit too early for the victim notification to even impact it, because he had never been arrested. But so often in domestic violence situations, it's early in the process where the victims are in danger. The offender is arrested, he's incarcerated, the victim thinks they're safe, and then he bails out. And the victim doesn't know that he's bonded out, doesn't know that he's on the street. This crime victim notification from the very early stages, once they are signed up for that, and it can be delivered through text, it can be delivered through email, it can be delivered through a phone call. Anytime there's any action taken with that offender, the victim is notified. If there's a court date set, if they're released on bond, whatever it is through the process. We now have this, I believe I think it's about 45 counties now that are live. My county, Catoosa County, came on board 2 weeks ago. We're adding counties almost weekly, and we're well on the way to having this statewide system in place, and we're excited to be able to provide that for victims.
And Jay, that statewide system is going to be a game changer. I'm going to share a quick 2-minute story because I want everybody to connect the dots here. Before this system was in place several years ago, we held the Rotary International conference right here in Atlanta. It was huge. We had tens of thousands of people. We had a great event at Centennial Olympic Park, big stage, and we had folks who are human trafficking survivors there. We had a mother-daughter combo, music talents, just brought tears to everyone's eyes as they talked about their story and their gift, and they celebrate how they're helping others now. They moved down to Florida to get away from the person who trafficked them, which was her ex-husband and the young girl's father. But he got out of jail and told some folks he was coming after them. and he was going to make sure he solved that problem for good, was his words. Only because that got sent to someone else, who got a phone call to me, and I called at the time the GBI, who immediately got the FLBI, their state agency, involved, that we had local folks go out there, grab those two young ladies out of there, and they were waiting for him when they showed up to the house. And he had a pistol and two long guns and a bowie knife ready to literally end their lives. But because we connected the dots, those young folks were saved. This will undoubtedly do that time and time again. So, we talk about all these different things we do here, but this really is a real-time impact to people's lives.
Absolutely. And not only can the victims sign up for these notifications, victim advocates at the domestic violence shelter or the police department can sign up. So they get the notification as well, and they can reach out to make sure that the victim has been notified. Prosecutors can sign up for it. Law enforcement can sign up for it. So that as these people go through the system, the individuals who need to be aware of the movements will be able to be aware. Tracking them all the way through it until conviction. It can be expanded out to be post-conviction, but that's not where we are now. Right now we're looking just at that from the point of arrest through conviction with this system. We're excited about it.
I had a question from Senator Harbison.
Just a comment. Pastor, I just want to appreciate you for the job you've done and ever since you've been aboard and the good works you do. But and I want to commend the senator from the 29th who always has that on his mind about the people being released and not notifying the families. He's brought that up on several occasions. But I want to go to the 228.3. And the two positions, you only had one field about the phone not being answered. That concerned me, and I'm just trying to. Is that solved now? We got a better.
She's
thing?
still answering the phone.
You just got one person.
Well, actually, she is. 100,000 was. She's on maternity leave right now. So others on that team is answering the phone. The 100,000 in the amended. As soon as we get the amended signed, we can take action and get somebody on right away.
We have contractors lined up too.
We have thank you. We have contractors lined up with that 100,000. So once the amended budget's signed,
it has
been signed. So we can go ahead and get that done. I was actually there last week. I went and signed.
It all runs together,
Crazy
Jason.
day. Absolutely.
We know the feeling.
So we've got contractors. Are the contractors already on now?
They're not on yet, but now that it's signed, we're in process.
Excellent.
Well, I just want it was covered. That
Yes.
concerned me to make sure that.
Yes.
I use Chair. Thank you.
And Senator James.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Reverend. I'm so glad to see you and know
Good to see you
that
as
you are there and helping. I've been fighting human trafficking probably 20 years, if not more. And in fact, I think I passed that the very first bill on human trafficking to make it a felony to pimp and pander any woman from 21 on and down, and make it a felony because it was a revolving door and they were just in and back out. But the victim was the one that would get arrested. So then we kept working on it. So I'm glad the First Lady took some of the bills that I couldn't pass, and she's passed them, and I'm so happy that it's helping this. But the community is still big, especially in Georgia. I know because we have international, right?
Yep. She has made a tremendous impact. There's no question about that. And where we are now compared to where we were 10 years ago in the fight against human trafficking is remarkable.
It is, isn't it?
And actually that segues into something else, if I could. The state of Georgia over these last 10 years we have really increased and improved our ability to respond to human trafficking. And we believe that we're in a position now, and this human trafficking hotline coming into CJCC as part of this, where we can be more efficient, more effective, and handle work that we had been depending on nonprofits to do, and sometimes nonprofits were doing them extremely well, and sometimes, like with this hotline last year, they didn't do so well, and we actually, as we were making calls to make sure that the line was being answered and it wasn't. We actually did get through once, and we were simply told, Georgia doesn't have any beds, you need to look out of state. That was the day that we decided we're starting to answer the phone now.
Thank you.
There's another issue that I think we really need to take a look at, and we're trying to be very conservative and very accountable with our state dollars, and I feel like we do a very good job with that as a state, and I feel like that we do a very good job of that at CJCC. The sexual assault money, the family violence money that comes to CJCC, we grant that money out to the sexual assault centers and domestic violence shelters through grant funds. The Child Advocacy Center's state appropriation, instead of coming to CJCC for us to grant out like we do with sexual assault and domestic violence, that money goes to DHS. DHS has a MOU with the Child Advocacy Centers of Georgia. They distribute that money to the Child Advocacy Centers of Georgia with no accountability and no oversight. And the Child Advocacy Centers of Georgia then decides what to do with that money, and they grant it out to the Child Advocacy Centers.
Mm-hmm.
We have felt for a number of years that the model that we use with sexual assault and domestic violence, where the state has oversight and accountability and require some very specific budget reports and making sure that the money's being spent in line with those budgets. We have felt for years that's a better model than what's happening with the money that's going to DHS and simply being passed through a nonprofit to the member agencies of the nonprofit. We had some conversations during the Dillon administration about moving that to CJCC and never moved with that. We had some conversations early in the Kemp administration and never took action on it. There's a lot of talk in Washington, D.C. right now about taxpayer dollars going to nonprofits with no accountability. And we've seen the kind of stories that come out of that. We've seen the kind of rhetoric that comes out of that. We've seen how divided that can be, and quite frankly, we've seen how wasteful it can be at times. I believe it's a good policy position for the state to distribute state appropriations through state agencies that are holding accountable any nonprofit that has a grant with the state, rather than that money going to a nonprofit and then distributed to their member associations without any state oversight and state accountability.
Thank you, Director. Yeah, we're going to have to keep going here. I got one more question from the Senate President Pro Tem and then Senator Robertson. Hey, very quickly, very quickly, please.
Because I know that, Chairman, you said that you wanted to look at something about grants and people getting more grants before you went on to something else. But you know they're stopping the grants, they're cutting all of those things out. And so I'm glad ARPA money has been available. But I know that it ends in '26, and I hope that it'll continue to fund the call center. In fact, I was the one that did the 1-800 number first, and we put we had to let everyone know, so we put the signs up in all the public buildings and bus stations and airports and all of that. And we were getting a lot of calls then, but the same thing you said that happened, nobody answered, because they found out about some of us who was leading that cause, and they started calling us. And I had hundreds per month that I would give to the authorities. So please keep that up, because they are
committed to it.
They don't know what to do unless they can get a call.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
My
Chairman.
pleasure. All right, our Pro Tem, Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay, thank you for your leadership and your dedication. I really appreciate that. You mentioned something that sparked a question I had, and it's simply this. How is Marcy's Law, in your opinion, working, if you will? That was the legislation we fought very hard for, probably 2019 or so, 18 or 19. Is it working? Is it as you think it was maybe intended? And if there's some detail, we can just get together offline. I don't want to take everybody's time with that, but I'm curious as to whether or not that is being implemented and is successful, in your opinion, as it was originally intended, but now you're actually making it happen.
So I think from our experience, it is working. There may be some people that wouldn't agree with me completely on that, but from our experiences and what we do in the realm of victim services, I believe it's working, and I believe it's working well. And certainly, this victim notification is something that we were already working on prior to Marcy's Law, but this gave us what we needed to be able to get this over the finish line. And so I think for the most part, I think it's doing what we intended for it to do.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. And final question from Senator Robertson.
Yeah, and sadly, I'm not here to do kumbayas and all that stuff. I always get to be the bad guy. But
Okay.
the $750,000 on 228.5, and I understand Senator Albert's concern about at the time. I'm just curious, what kind of effort has been put out to bring private funding into this? Because, look, nobody's out there committing all these crimes in their own vehicles. They're stealing very nice vehicles from good, hardworking Georgians and using them. So what kind of effort are y'all putting in the private sector to find this money?
So I don't think that it's hard for us to be the one that's out there looking for money in the private sector with this, quite frankly, because we have no funding to do that with. We don't have any grant writers that we can assign to this because they're being funded through other areas.
So would a portion of this $750,000 be to fund grant writers or somebody to help bring in the money needed?
If this $750,000 remains, there would be a portion of this that would provide staff to oversee the Motor Vehicle Crime Advisory Board and would be involved in the awarding of grants and overseeing of those grants, and also involved in trying to secure additional grants.
Because I just find it hard to believe that we couldn't find grants within multiple large insurance conglomerates that would be willing to help offset some of their expenses by putting something together to catch these individuals. And I know myself and the President Pro Tem live in mid-sized communities that created massive public-private partnerships during the Olympics and other big events where we had tax funding and private funding to come in, and now at this point it's completely run by grant programs and funding programs. So I do think that Senator Albers was kind of put in an awkward position when a piece of legislation came through and was told that, hey, it's going to be private funding. And I'm just disappointed that there wasn't enough foresight to see that the chicken and the egg. And in this case, the chicken being the state funding should be first in order to get the grants that are required, because the auto theft thing is, look, we can try to solve the problem today, or we can try to push it down the field like we do on most things and try to solve it later. But I'm just curious as to what effort has been put in there, and I appreciate your answer, and good luck moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll just add one more thing. Commissioner Brose will be speaking to her committee about that DHS funding.
Perfect.
She is in support of moving that as well.
Outstanding. Jay, thank you again, you and your team. Appreciate
Thank you.
everything.
Appreciate you all.
All right, moving on. GIPSIC, the Georgia Public Safety Training Center. Come on down, Director Wigington, and for all the folks here, that's page 42 on your cut sheets.
Chairman, if I may.
Oh, yes.
If I may say, as these good folks are coming down, I call them my folks. I'm very proud that GIPSTIC is in my district, and so thank you for being here. I'm going to have to step out in a few minutes. Please don't take that personally. I've just got double booked here for an appointment in a few minutes, but thank you for the good work you're doing. And it truly is a source of pride for us to have that facility in the state, and certainly for those of us in Middle Georgia.
Director, have we taken the Senate President Pro Tem through the firefighter class and the mandate class for law enforcement yet?
Not the class. I've toured, but I haven't had the class
All right, well,
yet.
we're going to get him in some bunker gear here soon, so, all right. All right.
Goes to bed every night. That's kind of a firefighter training course right there, isn't it?
Yeah, jealousy is a stinky cologne, Senator. It's a stinky cologne. All right, come on, Chris.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Thank you for the time. We're going to be on page 41 through 43. 278.1 and 278.2 are statewide changes. So I'll move to 278.3. That is to increase funds, $253,000 for jail training. That is in reference to Senate Bill 37 last year that expanded arrest powers for jailers in certain circumstances. There's currently no training that covers the Fourth Amendment, and arresting a free citizen versus somebody in confinement is totally different. So that's what that training will be for. Next is 278.4. That is to increase funds for 2 positions and the supplies that will be needed for standardized field sobriety and speed detection device. Last year, with the expansion of the basic mandate training, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety had an understanding that they would be able to fund these 2 programs. They were notified by their federal partners that they would not be able to fund it. Therefore, we're back asking for those funds from the state since that is part of the curriculum. The next 3 are reductions, and I would like for this committee to, actually 4 are reductions, and I would like for this committee to reconsider those reductions. Number 1 is 278.5. That is to reduce funds for an academy that we had in Pickens County that we rented. That academy was taken back over by the Board of Education and is being used as a school. Therefore, we're in the Alpharetta Police Department. That is a short-term agreement with that entity, and at some point we will find another place to land. So if you take the rent money, we have no negotiations to rent that new term. The next is 278.6. That is a reduction of $110,000 to the volunteer firefighter program. That original request for 110 was for 2 vehicles, and if you go back and look in the funding, we only got funded for 1 of those vehicles. So it was one-time ask, but we were only funded for $55,000. So you're cutting 110 for 2 vehicles that we didn't receive.
And I'm going to just give you a little backup on that one. We have had a tremendous loss of people in the firefighter ranks, especially in the volunteer side of the house. And the work that your team does of going to them to get that necessary training, which has become increasingly more difficult, is of critical importance, especially the more rural we get in the state. So I know they're doing a great job, and I want to really commend you, Chris, because your leadership has taken something that used to be behind the scenes, very proactive out there, and talking to the fire chiefs and departments, they have felt you really rolling the red carpet to get to them. So thank you for that work, and I feel confident we can turn that a different direction for you.
Thank you very much. And one thing I will cover is we were notified this week with some of the grants we get from the National Fire Academy and the things that are going on in D.C. There are 6 classes that will be cut recently that these funds, if reinstated, would help those 6 funds continue to be delivered. But without these funds and the funds from the National Fire Academy, there will be 6 classes in the near future that will not be taught in the field any longer. The next is 278.7. That is a reduction of $681,000. Those were one-time requests for the basic mandate expansion. And the reason I asked for the reconsideration is we're 3 months into that program. So we really don't know what our true costs are going to be. All of the numbers that we submitted last year to this committee and to the legislature and the governor's office were based on approximate figures. And as we know, some of the things that we're teaching currently, those prices are changing daily. Ammunition, fuel, tires, some of the training munitions we use. So with this fund, if you cut this and some of those are increased, then we're going to run short and be back again. So I'd ask for a little consideration, at least for a year, to get this under our belt from 1 year of delivery.
And Chris, if I could just connect the dots, because Colonel Hitchens came earlier, you may have been in the room, and he was talking about us building the new building to help them out. But this all ties together for, as you mentioned, the increase in basic mandate school is great. We want to have more training for our law enforcement officers, but because of that, when we built Gypstick, it was made for a much smaller state and smaller amount of law enforcement. So the expansion obviously is going to come with some additional costs.
That's correct. When the center was built, we went back and pulled some historical documents. It was built to have 500 to 600 students a day, and we run anywhere from 12 to 1,600 a day, if that gives you an idea of our
Remind me what
population.
year Gypstick was built, do you know?
So it was built in 86.
86.
That's when we opened. So early 80s, because it took several years to beat it, but the first class was in 86.
Fantastic.
So it's been a constant renovation since that time frame.
All right, let's keep going.
Yes, sir. And the last would be 278.8. That was an increase of $150,000 to North Central Law Enforcement Academy that the House added.
So let me ask about that, because we don't have a location yet, do we?
That is correct. The training center does not have a location. That is what we would consider the last contract academy that the state does pass through money to. So we currently have a budgetary amount that we pass through to them, but they're the only academy. So if you go back historical, all the academies were under post. And at some point, all the regional academies were transferred to the training center. Therefore, all of that funding transferred to the training center. Somewhere in the, I hate to use the term politics in this environment, but somewhere in the politics of that time frame, this academy survived and state funds continued to pass through that academy. I'm not sure of the backstory on that. It's just there's money in our account that you legislate and appropriate every year that we pass through.
Okay, I guess my question is, because it obviously didn't originate from you or the governor's office.
That is correct.
And the House added to it, so I'm scratching my head on that one a little bit of where other things were cut that we might need to add money. That might be one where we look to change. I think there might be a question from Senator Roberts that I can see him stewing over there.
See the perplexed look on my face. Tell me where the North Central Georgia Law Enforcement Academy is.
It is in Cobb County.
It's in Cobb County, and
It is ran by the Sheriff's Department, so it is ran by the Cobb County Sheriff's Department.
okay, and so their curriculum and everything comes from where?
They develop it internally.
And yet we're a pass-through for them,
Yes, sir.
and so we have no oversight
That is correct.
of that academy.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, well, I think the chairman and I think maybe close to thinking the same thing on something like that. That makes little sense to me. On 278.3, when you're talking about the additional training for jailers in accordance with SB 37, and I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked some of your friends earlier. Are we duplicating training in the state with state dollars?
Yes, sir. I feel that we are.
Okay, has there been in the past an opportunity where everybody could sit down and we could look at the redundancy that we have when it comes to training? My biggest concern about it is, and I know in the chairman's profession, everybody needs to know the same thing. Everybody needs to carry out certain actions the exact same way. We discovered after 9/11 that we had breaks within fire service, police service, and others where we couldn't even communicate with each other on radios. And because of that fact, and I do not want this to go across as insignificant, due to that fact, men and women who wear the uniforms of fire service and law enforcement service and citizens died because of the fact that everybody got in their own silo when it came to training and communication, and we failed at doing what we were supposed to do. So has there been an opportunity in the past where leadership could park their egos at the door and go in and sit around the table and talk about the responsibility of training and where that training lies? Because looking at this, we're giving you training for a jail course, or giving you funding for a jail course, and the sheriff's office funding for jail courses. And we are training the same people. And I was one of those folks back in the early 80s that was in one of the first training classes at Gypstick, and I slept on those prison beds. So I know what that's about. So do you agree that we need to sit down and look at some of this redundancy in order to save the taxpayers' dollars and make sure we're teaching consistent training to all public safety?
Yes, sir. I do agree.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions from the committee members? Chris, we missed a chance to come down and visit y'all. Oh, we got a question? Oh, hang on a minute. Let me get your microphone on there, Senator James. Go ahead.
Oh, excuse me. Hello, hello. Thank
Hello,
you for all your hard work and your good work. The monies that you were were reduced or taken away, did you already ask for approval, or Mr. Chairman, are they going to be restored?
Well, that's why we're having this meeting today,
Okay.
Senator.
I'm gonna vote on restored.
All right.
Well, thank you.
That's one vote. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. We may have somebody in North Central Georgia for this law enforcement academy, do we? I was told. Oh, we do have somebody here. Come on down. We need to hear from you real quick here. We want to connect some dots. Come on down, introduce yourself to us, and tell us what we don't know.
Okay, I'm actually LaTanya Long from Cobb County Sheriff's
Yes,
Office.
LaTanya, good to see you again.
Good, you too. I'll try to connect the dots if I can. We put in a budget request because, yes, GIFSTIC is a pass-through for this funding. What's happened because this academy is in Austell currently, Cobb County has been supporting it with the bulk of the funds of about $800,000. So because we had to do an increase in the budget because Cobb County is no longer willing to support this academy, only, that large amount. It supports several counties, several cities, but it's housed in Cobb, so that's where we would get the funding for it from. So we came to the state. We never asked for an increase in that appropriation, and we're just trying to get funding outside of subscriber fees and what the county was giving us.
I do remember the meeting we had.
Yes,
so we're just sending out.
exactly.
So just to clarify, this is a area that's closer in the state to where some jurisdictions want to send their folks.
Correct.
So they can be at home at night, not pay the extra expense and time to get down to Forsyth that Cobb has been handling, but it's still making people post-certified police officers, taking them through the academy. And with the additional mandate hours we put on, this is to help you guys close the gap. That's what this is about.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for
All right.
reminding me and
All right.
getting us back
Thank
up.
you.
A quick question from Senator Robertson.
Yes, ma'am. You said the Cobb County Academy supports several counties?
Yes.
Could you tell me what counties those are?
Douglas, Carroll, Paulding, Bartow, Harrelson, and Cobb.
And what did they say when you told them you were going to fall 150,000 short? Did they pony up?
It's actually $750,000
Okay.
short.
The seven. Did y'all talk about the dispersing the 150 amongst all those partners?
What we did is increase the subscriber fees. We was annually bringing about 133,000. They increased those subscriber fees, I think, for each student. Now we're projected at about 266,000. So we increased the revenue that we could bring in. We just still had that shortfall from, I think, the mandate change in hours or whatever. It's just it cost about $1 million to run.
So you're running your own academy. You're not just training Cobb County Sheriff's deputies, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, you're also training Cobb County police officers?
Ackworth, Alpharetta, Austell, Brookhaven, Cartersville, Kennesaw, Powder Springs, Sandy Springs, Billerica, Smyrna, and Kennesaw State University.
You're a one-stop shop police academy?
Yes, sir.
So shouldn't that funding rest with you? I mean,
No.
GIPSTIC belongs to the state. Therefore, I can see funding GIPSTIC for what they do. But if a county or if governments choose to stand up their own academy and it is allowed by post, then I'm having a hard time understanding what the state's responsibility is in funding your academy.
Let me ask this a different way, because I'm following what Senator Roberts is saying. If we were to send those same folks to GIPSTIC, what cost would it be to the state? So where's the break-even point for baboth?
I can get that answer. I'm not sure it is today.
So let me get back
sure.
in line,
No
so
problem.
if you don't mind.
No problem.
So this is based on a reimbursement. So if it's $150,000 additional, we don't give them $150,000. So then under the current program, they submit an invoice at the end of each class. And if they graduate 29 recruits, we have a mathematical figure that we reimburse them for that money. So it's done on a reimbursement scale currently, and with this additional funds, if it's approved and moved on. But
And Director, what are you reimbursing them for?
so jail class and basic mandate. And the figure, I'll let Cindy tell the figures. She knows exactly.
Do you have it? I don't think I brought it.
It's like $150 or $60 for a basic jail student and $600 and some odd dollars for a basic mandate student.
Are they doing something you should be doing under your mission?
We don't, so currently, if you go back and go back to the amended budget when I talked about the place that we're trying to acquire up in unincorporated Cherokee County, so we could have a larger footprint outside of that metro Atlanta North area, we could meet that demand. But under our current footprint, no, sir, we could not. We do not have an academy in that geographical area.
Okay, one last question. Have you thought about just buying Cobb's and doing it all?
Well, they lease that building, is my understanding. It's not a purchase. So we've worked with state properties for the last 3 years trying to find somewhere to land in that North Metro area.
No, I'm just thinking they've already got something set up. What if Gypstick just took it over and did it all?
Took the lease and everything.
I think that's up for another discussion
All right.
outside.
No, we'll do that.
We're not opposed to it.
We
but
won't solve for that
Yeah,
today.
and I'm sorry, but is this the only standalone we have?
It is. It's the only standalone academy that the state does pass through money for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
only allows for 200 law.
Come to the microphone, please.
Yeah.
The current contract only allows for 200 basic law enforcement and 150 basic jail. That's all we pay them for currently, and the $150,000 is divided up amongst that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to come back and talk about this offline because we don't want to take it all up. But I think what Senator Roberts and I are getting at is I'm cognizant of what the Cobb Sheriff's Office is doing. That area of the state has grown significantly and probably at a higher percentage than most places around it where you're seeing people go to. And for them to not have to pay for someone to basically live in Forsyth, Georgia during mandate school is also a big expense. They get to go home, but also in keeping with what they're doing to try to get them part of their community and their local force. So I understand the logic of why, and until we get the other, we'll just talk through this a little more. But I'm going to ask Will Spencer Mouth to set up a meeting for all of us, the three of you, Senator Robertson and myself, to follow up. All right, any further questions for Director Wigington and Gypstick? Senator James.
It's really more comment. You mentioned Cobb County that's now in my district, and you said Douglas County, and that's in my district. And I didn't know these things that you were talking about, so I would like for you to send me some more information. Senator Donzella James.
Fantastic.
Now the 28th district, not the 35th anymore.
Exactly.
Y'all
I know.
took my
It's
district.
hard to keep up with it. Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate it for all the great work. We're going to go a little bit out of order. I'm going to bring the GBI up next. Come on up, Director Hosey and team. And then we're going to go to DJJ and corrections because they just kind of fit logically one to the other. I apologize for everybody who's had to wait so long. It has been a lot of information to go through today. All right, on your pages, that's going to be page 21. Director, great to see you as always.
Thank you and the committee. Allows us to be here this afternoon. I am going to jump on down to 224.3, which is $19,290 to increase the funds for the new pool car reservation system at GBI. The current system, it reached end of life in December 24, and that is an updated quote. The original that came out was 10,346, and we have since been able to update that quote to 19,290. 224.4 is to increase funds to reflect an adjustment to the statewide security contract through the Department of Administrative Services. As you know, we utilize the DOAS statewide contract for our armed security presence at our headquarters 24/7. They have negotiated rates that have increased over the past several years to a tune of about 18% since FY22. This is for $57,018 for that amount. I will add to that one of our security officers received the Officer of the Month award in part for I know of 2 incidents that she stepped in on that occurred on GBI property in the parking lot that would have affected some of our employees. So very proud of the work she did. We recognized her from the agency, but also I wanted just to mention that she received that award as well through her security agency.
Oh, outstanding. I'd love to send that officer a letter as well. And I just wanted for the committee's perspective to know these are 2 things we passed in the amended budget, and this is annualizing those dollars. So
That's
this is a
right.
continuation.
Most of this that I'll cover is with the exception of a couple things.
All right, go right ahead.
226.3 is to increase funds for 1 crime lab scientist, 1 crime lab technician, and 1 evidence retrieving technician at our central lab in Macon. That again, that is that is adding 1 scientist, 1 lab tech, and 1 evidence receiving tech. That will be for our chemistry section at the crime lab, which is about 78% of our current backlog within the lab. And that is $384,591 on that amount.
226.4 would increase funds for one crime lab assistant manager at headquarters. In the House's version of, they actually added a second crime lab manager. That total is 389,714. Those positions would definitely, one will go into our chemistry section. Right now, we could put the second one in chemistry as well, but we could also utilize it in forensic biology. Honestly, if approved, we'll look at how things are in those two sections and make a better determination which section we would put that second position in. Again, if approved there, we have some flexibility with that.
And Director, if I could, I don't want to
Yes,
interrupt your flow, but I think it's very germane to this area. First, I want to thank you for you and your team meeting with me and some of the district attorneys who are looking for a more quicker solution to do initial testing. And I believe your team came up with a phenomenal idea of having some more machines placed throughout your regional offices. And I'm going to assume having that type of stuff is also going to require some additional oversight as well, because we can't just put something somewhere without having the proper controls, management, supervision, and people in place. Would you mind just spending a minute for this committee to understand what those are and what they would do for those, I can't remember the exact number and name of the machines we talked
Right.
about purchasing.
So really to take a good approach to our backlog situation, specifically in the chemistry section, that's where our largest backlog sits right now. That is drug evidence. We are looking at thinking outside the box a little bit, going toward a multi-pronged approach to working on it. Part of that is working with our prosecutors around the state with evidence that is there, but also one of the big things that we had discussed with you is looking at providing preliminary identification or preliminary reports on the drugs that are specifically the powders, your cocaines, meths, heroines, fentanyls, things of that nature, that we can run through the first phase of testing, give our prosecutors around the state something to work with, because currently they have nothing. Some of the items or instrumentation that we're looking at are portable mass spectrometers, which is the same machines that we have currently in our labs now, but on a smaller scale. They don't test as many samples at one time, but they are also easier to interpret because they're going to tell you and spell out what the drug is that is being tested. Again, it's those powder substances for the most part. But it is just one of the prongs in what we're looking at into getting some sort of results out to our prosecutors and our law enforcement partners across the state to give them something to work with on the investigations that we're currently. You're looking at 30,000 plus just in our backlog in drug chemistry, where there is nothing that they can go forward with to attempt anything in resolving the case. So it's just another way to better serve our partners across the state.
Excellent. We got those figures from the director and his team that will be looking into the budget to really help out our folks across the state. I think I got a question from Senator Harbison.
Just very briefly, first, thank you for the job you do. I know it's a tough job, but you really appreciate it more than you think. What are security contracts? And just very briefly, I just saw security contracts. What would that be?
It's for the private security company that provides security at our GBI headquarters facility.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Let's continue on.
Okay. 226.5 would be to increase funds for additional service contracts for our crime lab instrumentation. Some of that very much like what I just mentioned with our mass specs being one of those. In FY25, House Bill 916, 1.5 million was restored in those service contracts. Keeping the service contracts up helps maintain our lab instrumentation, getting priority on service calls when something goes down, and they often provide unlimited parts if we have, again, a machine that goes down. And keeping that instrumentation operating and functioning properly obviously assists with our backlog as well too when they're not down and they're working like they should. And that is 633,593. 226.6 is actually a reduction in funds for the one-time costs related to the medical examiner's office positions that was in FY25. That consists of, I believe it is 10 positions. They're all support positions, supporting our medical examiners in the medical examiner's office, and that's $28,270. I am going to skip on down to 227.4, and that is $294,420 to replace federal funds with state funds for 3 human trafficking special agent positions with the agency. That is for our HEAT unit, the human trafficking unit, which was created in 2020. And obviously, they focus on efforts of commercial sex trafficking, labor trafficking, as well as safe recovery of trafficking victims around the state. They were funded, these 3 positions were originally funded through a grant through CJCC that ended in August of last year. CJCC is not allowed to get that grant any further. We're not allowed, obviously, to receive the funds off of it. This $294,420 is actually for 6 months of funding for those 3 positions, in hopes that we can find another maybe federal grant or something of that nature to continue with that funding for those positions. 227.5 provides funds to establish a strategic threat assessment group responsible for addressing threats to public officials, investigating homeland security matters, and partnering with critical infrastructure partners to provide support during major events, many of which we have right here in Atlanta with bowl games and so forth. It actually expands our GSAC unit, our intel unit, by adding 2 new sworn positions to that unit to handle increased domestic threats, as I mentioned, to elected officials, elections, school threats, special events, and also incidents that can occur or intelligence that can be developed at our ports of entry. In 2024, at our GSAC unit, we had 447 threats to life that we received, and we processed 166 threat screening encounters, which those are actually encounters by law enforcement or at our port of entries around the state of an individual that has been inputted into the system or into the terror screening center. So it's important for those to be followed up on as well. We currently, I'll add, have 4 special agent positions at our GSAC unit. 2 are at the JTTF, 1 is assigned at the airport, and then 1 is doing some of this very work that I speak of right now. And he is staying extremely busy. I won't go into any details of some of the activity that he is conducting, but he is staying very busy. So these 2 positions would be to complement the work that is being done there. I will also add, and I think I have it in my notes later, but since I'm speaking on concerning GSAC, I will add that in the past 3 years, there's been a 124% increase in information that is being sent through our CSend app. I heard it mentioned in here earlier. We definitely saw a rise after the school shooting in Barrow County last September. And then we have seen a 189% increase in school threats that we have received at GSAC. We receive on average about 2 to 3 of those a month that we're following up on and working with our local authorities.
So I'm going to have to stop you on that one just for a minute, Director. We were talking earlier about connecting all the dots of the databases that are out there. Knowing where you're gathering things, pulling things in through the threats from GSAC or SEND. Of course, we get the school system. Then we've got local law enforcement, what they've already captured outside of that. And then now we're talking about yet another data source or database in order to do that. Is there a better way to do that in your mind? Should that not be to me, it should be in the same threat analysis, should be in that area and that drive everything. But I'm asking for your thoughts and input on that.
Well, I think any time that information is flowing to one central location that can be assessed and then pushed out is better. Is that possible? I'm not 100% sure if it's possible for it to come into and go out of one location. Just in the information that we're pushing out at GSAC, some of that is coming from the FBI. I know week before last, 3 threats that we received there, or one of them at least, it was coming from the FBI. And then we're working it up, and then we're sending it out to our local agencies to follow up on, and we're assisting with that as well. Some of it is coming through the CSend app. CSend app has the ability to go in and enter information concerning a school threat or a concern, but also SAR reports, suspicious activity reports, and gang activity can be put in there as well. And it can be anonymous as well that is put in there. We also get information that comes to our, or get information through the hotline that is coming from the schools that goes to our watch desk at GSAC as well. So there's three modes of channels that information can come into GSAC within those three right there that I just mentioned.
Okay, yeah, it's a good follow-up for us. All right, continue on.
And I'll add this as well too. With what GSAC is good at is analyzing criminal behavior or criminal activity that is being reported. Some of this can be behavioral. That's not really their forte per se to analyze that kind of behavior, but we also know that sometimes it is the behavioral issues that then progress into something much worse. And we've seen some of that as well. So 227.6 provides funds for 2 crime scene specialists, technical leaders, and 3 digital forensic investigators. That's $1,033,531. As you know, our crime scene specialists do a lot of great work around the state. There's 32 of them. They're currently being overseen by 1 coordinator. These 2 positions would be for oversight of our crime scene specialist, more so necessarily boots on the ground, but that oversight, they would be providing mentoring, training, quality control statewide. One thing, ensuring that we have consistency across the state with our crime scene specialists, that the work is being done the same across the state and so forth. Also within that is for 3 digital forensic investigators, which is a highly specialized technical support part of our investigative division. I doubt there are many cases that our investigative division are investigating in this day and time that does not have some kind of technology associated with it, whether it is a computer, phone, mobile device, vehicles, and a lot of other digital devices as well. Our DFIs require extensive training, testing, and continuing education, and this would be to add to that complement of DFIs that we have here in the state already. Our goal with this program with our DFIs is to push them out into the field in our work units. A couple years ago, we did that with our criminal intel analysts, where we embedded them in our work units. We saw that there's good productivity out of that. They feel like they have ownership in the investigations that are taking place. They're right there, boots on the ground, again, with the other agents and so forth, and that's what we're seeing good results out of that. So that would be part of this project with our DFIs. 227.7 is to increase funds for ongoing maintenance support of our case management leads tracking systems. It's $562,135. We are in the process, and hopefully by here in just a few months, that we will be ready to launch our new case management system that will replace GymNet, which had been outdated. These funds, the total annual cost is $1.57 million for these systems, and the current budget is at $1 million. This right here makes up the difference of those two, if that makes sense. But that's all it is. It makes up that difference. 227.8 is a reducing of funds for one-time costs associated with the Columbus Gang Task Force positions. It is just removal of the first one-time cost. That's it.
Right, because they've already been.
That's right.
They're there. So okay.
And we actually have the blueprint for the office that's going to be renovated for them in Columbus. And I'll tell you, because I brought this with me, just in the length of time that they've been in existence, 61 cases they've initiated, 31 arrests, 18 weapons seized, over $3 million in drug seizures that have been made. But here's what's most important to me in this, is that they have worked cases with Muskogee County SO, Columbus PD, LaGrange PD, Troup County SO, West Point PD, Harris County SO, Meriwether County SO, Upson County SO, FBI, DEA, ATF, and HSI. So they're doing what they went there to do.
I think the director anticipated your question, Senator Harbison. Probably Robertson would have had the same. I thought so.
I was expecting it from this side of the room too, but he left on me. So
he's coming back.
They're doing great work. They're doing really great work. 227.9 is $200,000 to increase funds for advanced DNA and genetic genealogical testing for our cold case unit. Of course, that unit has been doing very well. They are actively investigating 55 unsolved death investigations currently. 14 of those came through the Coleman-Baker Act request legislation. 24 are being worked as unsolved that are coming out of our regional offices. 5 are from local law enforcement requests, and 12 have been GBI unidentified remains investigations. Of those 12, the manner of death, and 7 of those have been determined to be homicides. So the current $75,000 that it was budgeted for genetic genealogy has been put to good use. $68,000 of that $75,000 in last year's money has already been obligated. The remainder of it is already obligated to be used this year as well too. The hope with this additional funding is that the genetic genealogy testing can be expanded, even reaching out potentially into some of our local agencies to see if they have any unsolved, that there would be evidence present there that would benefit from genetic genealogy as well, along with taking deeper dives into some of the cases that we already have that are unsolved to see if there's anything that fits the protocol for that testing as well. 227.10 is to increase funds for 8 criminal intel analysts and for GSAC, our Intelligence Sharing Analysis, Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Of course, they maintain, as we discussed already a little bit, statewide suspicious activity reporting app, which is the CSEND app. Over the past 3 years, and I'd mentioned this, the increase in school threats as well as the increase in reporting through the CSEND app. These 8 positions are kind of twofold. 4 of those positions, because this helps support House Bill 268, which is the school safety bill, our legislation, that we would anticipate that our submissions into CSEND are going to go up as well, based on that and the training that's going to go out to the schools. So 4 of those positions would be to assist with that increase in information coming into that app. The other 4 are current analyst positions that we already have on board, but they are under grant funding that we were recently told in October that grant funding will no longer be available for them come October. I would have put that in the budget request back when we initially made them back in the summer when everything was getting kicked off, but we did not know this until October. So that's the other 4 positions that I mentioned there. So a total of 8 to support that initiative with GSAC. Would you want me to go into capital projects as well?
Go right ahead.
I'll be very quick with those. 380.50 is furniture, fixtures, equipment for our ME annex at headquarters. That's the expansion that'll be taking place there. I've heard that we're anticipating maybe starting around May on the construction at headquarters for that. That is $5,184,500. 380.51 is design money for the Region 10 Investigative Office and Crime Scene Garage, which is located currently in Conyers in Rockdale County. It would replace the current building that Region 10 and the Metro Gang Unit are housed in. They're 2 separate buildings on the same piece of property. And then as well as a much-needed crime scene garage would be included in this design. It's about 65,000 square feet, but it will also help us house some headquarters units that we can move those units out of headquarters, make room at headquarters, and then house them all in this one complex. So that is for the design money at Region 10. 380.52 is for 7 vehicles for new positions statewide. They would be for the new positions in the FY26, the 2 STAG sworn positions. That is the 2 agent positions going to GSAC, the 2 crime scene specialists, the 3 DFIs, vehicles and equipment associated with that. 380.53, major repairs and renovations statewide. Part of that is the Augusta fire alarm system, headquarters generator replacement, air compressor unit replacement, lab renovations in our impressions and biology section at $2,765,000. And then lastly, 380.54 is $1,100,000 for minor repairs and renovations statewide, to include building automation repairs, replacement paint, lighting, switchgear, and electrical panels, and installation of electrical infrared scanners.
Whew, that's a lot. Well done. Very comprehensive. I'm glad to see the investments we're making, not just from losing federal grants, but also expanding in the areas that you mentioned. You know, the state keeps getting bigger, and unfortunately, things are not getting less complex, they're getting more complex, and the GBI is serving almost every corner of the state at any given time, being there. We've also had, unfortunately, way too many officer-involved shootings. What used to seem like once every 3 months went to once a month to once a week to several times a week sometimes. And we know that you're always in the forefront of those as well. And we appreciate your immediate reaction to help out those local law enforcement officers. Okay, questions from the committee members? I know we had a couple on the way, but any additional ones? Wow, that was very impressive, Chris.
Yeah. I'll say, I'd like to add real quick that I appreciate all the work that our staff has gone into in helping us prepare this budget, because it reaches pretty much all the divisions within our agency to address the needs across our agency. And I say that's important because there is great work being conducted by your GBI, whether it's Investigative Division, Crime Lab, ME's office, GCIC, it doesn't matter, finance, and I could keep going on. And I really am honored to serve there and work with these men and women each and every day. They do a great job, and they've got great purpose every day when they get up to go to work for what they do.
Well, we're eternally grateful to you all, and I think Senator James wants to make a comment.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the training that you're going to provide to the schools, you mentioned?
I believe that would be GEMA doing that.
GEMA?
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
I just wanted to make sure that in the curriculum, they also address kids who are have special needs, because my grandson is autistic, and I started reading and studying so much about him. So they are misunderstood, and I don't want anybody to hurt someone that has problems.
Right.
And so I want to make sure that if our law enforcement, and my son is one of them, it is training, that they give that kind of training too, so they would be able to say, well, this is not someone about to shoot up every place. This is a person that has some kind of mental challenge, and they need help that way and not beat them down and put them in jail. And,
well, I think, even before this year, law enforcement has been conducting training in responding to school incidents, active shooter training, and so forth for a very long time. And a lot of what you're talking about there is taken into account. And I've never been over an SRO program in a school, but I've known a lot of them, and I've seen great work, and I'm pretty sure that is covered with them as well.
I was in
a lot of different personalities and things that are in a school, and for us, we have to learn to adjust to them.
I was on the governor's mental health commission, and I was on the committee that looked at adolescents and mostly going to middle and high schools for those kids. And so many of them end up going to jail, and we have to try to figure out how to get them in the right place, rather than because they just have some disabilities that could be cured or solved.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that I even have a bill say, I'm something, ID bracelet or something, so that we'll know instead of, like I said, so many of them get hurt. I'll go to jail, and then the parents call us, and we have to go.
Right.
So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
And I just want to make sure that we save those kids.
Absolutely.
Again, Director Hosey, Deputy Director Dutton, Connie, who we know does all the real work on this budget.
That's right.
But thank you to you and your entire team. Please send that along to everyone for us.
Sure will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Department of Juvenile Justice, page 29, your cut sheets, and we're going to have to start moving a little quicker here, folks. I'm sorry? Yeah, corrections belong. So just to give everybody an update, because we've been going strong for 2.5 hours. First off, I want to thank everyone for being patient. I know this has been a long meeting. We're going to hear from our friends at DJJ, and then last but certainly not least, our friends in corrections. Commissioner Oliver, I'm sorry you had to be at the end, but you've got the biggest part of this budget. In between that, I'm going to encourage everybody to do this. We're going to take 5 minutes for everybody to stretch your legs and have a water. No, for us, not for you. You've been able to do that. We haven't. Because there's a lot of changes in the corrections budget. We want to make sure we give it the time and attention it so justly deserves. But Commissioner, it was so great to see you. Thank you for all the great work you and your team do at DJJ. Why don't you take us away again? Reminder to the committee members, it's page 29 in your books.
All righty, so I'll jump right in. Thank
Please.
you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I just want to start that our ask actually begins with salary increases for some of our staff, so we're very appreciative of the fact that you all will even allow us an opportunity to make the request. We will start with line item 231.4. We're asking for a 4% increase for our JCOs, and currently that is sitting in our community service budget in the amount of $6,833. And then I'm going to skip a little bit, and there's a reason for this, to line item 233.5, which is also the 4% increase for JCOs in the amount of $1,931,401 in the YDC budget.
And this is, Commissioner, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is well-deserved raises and also to keep parity with what we'll be talking with Commissioner Oliver and the corrections team.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
And then line item 234.5 in the amount of $1,235,069 in our RYDCs. Where these numbers are correct, they're in the wrong program budgets. And so the $6,833 actually should be in our departmental administration budget, and then 233.5 and 234.5 should be switched.
Yeah, Jennifer and I have already talked about this, and we're already getting ready to make the corrections for you.
Okay, thank you. So then we'll move back to line item 231.5, which is an increase of 4%, a salary increase for our education, chaplain, food service, and maintenance positions to align with statewide averages in the amount of $16,873. What we're seeing with our teachers is that the local school systems, they're also not only doing increases but offering bonuses, and as a statewide school system, we're not able to do that. And then with our engineer maintenance staff, because our salaries are not competitive, sometimes we don't even get applicants, and when we do, we're getting applications from individuals that don't have any background in the field. And part of this is just simply because the construction industry is also booming. Then with our food service staff, a lot of times our fast food restaurants are paying just as much as we are, and sometimes a little more. And with our chaplaincy services, we only have 4 in our agency, 2 full-time, and one of those is vacant, and then we have 2 part-time. So if we're able to get this increase, this would really help us to go maybe from 2 full-time to 4 full-time. So the dollar amount, once again, is $16,873.
A quick question from Senator Robertson.
Real quick on your chaplaincy, what's the qualifications to be a chaplain within DJJ?
I would need to go back and take a look and get that to you.
Thank you, I appreciate
that. Follow up on that one.
You're welcome. So, and I just want to remind the committee that not only do we have challenges sometimes because we're trying to compete with other industries, but this is a hard environment to work in. And so not everybody is cut out to work in our environment. I would also like for this same request with the 4% in our other program budget areas, we have 233.7, which is our YDCs in the amount of $564,055, where we're making the same request, and then 234.7 in our RYDC budget, we're requesting $749,420 for this 4% salary increase. In the past, I've talked to you all about majority of the young people that we serve are actually in the community. On any given day, we serve a little over 10,000 young people in the community. And we do this with the help of child caring institutions that provide residential placement beds for the youth that can be served in the community. An example of this would be Room Board Watch for Oversight. But not every provider is willing to take a DJJ kid, so that becomes another challenge for us. So this leads us to our next request for a 2% provider rate increase for our child care institution, just so that we can remain competitive. And this can be found in line item 231.6 for $351,582. In some of the previous meetings, we've also talked about the increased number of young people that we have on the mental health caseload. On any given day, we can have up to 74% of our young people on a mental health caseload. Since COVID, what we've seen is not as many professionals as far as mental health and behavioral health in the field, and we've seen less individuals that are always willing to come in and provide that service behind the wire. So what we have been doing is trying to be very diligent in retaining what we have. So we have part-time, full-time, and contractor staff, all trying to just make sure that we're delivering the rehabilitative services that we're required to deliver. So on line item 233.4 in our YDC budget, we're requesting $401,330. And line item 234.4 in our RYDC budget, we're requesting $798,670. Now that gets us an increase for our therapists, but then we also have counselors in our agency that helps to provide these services. So we're requesting an 8% increase for our behavioral health counselors to align with the statewide averages. Line item 233.6 in the YDC budget, we're requesting $364,296, and line item 234.6 in our RYDC budget, we're requesting $490,234.
And Commissioner, if I could just go back slightly. The area where we did an increase for, I believe it's the psychologists and the psychiatrists.
Yes.
Those numbers seemed pretty high to us, going from $100 to $110 an hour and $200 to $210 an hour, respectively. That seemed to be extraordinarily high based on other rates we've seen. Can you give us some more context on that, please?
So, and please correct me, and this is Stephen Williams, our CFO.
Absolutely.
I apologize for not
That's okay.
introducing him earlier, but when we went back and took a look at it, especially given the fact that we're dealing with juveniles, so that's where we were doing the comparisons. So what we've been looking at, as I think you all are already aware, is giving a $5 increase to the psychologists and then the $10 increase based on that, and the work that we're having to do because of the number of young people they're having to serve.
Okay. All right. Well, let's continue moving on.
All righty, so this gets us to our capital projects, which this request has been moved from the cash bond package to the GO bond package. The first line item is 382.411. It's a $3.5 million request. We are in the middle of a 56-bed housing unit project at Muskogee, YDC. And GISVIC, they've been working with our engineering team as well as our contractor. And we've done some value engineering work trying to see how we could cut back, but we're still $3.5 million short because of HVAC, plumbing, security, electronics, and detention equipment, where those prices just have not come in within budget. Line item 382.412 in the amount of $82,695,000 is for a hybrid all-girls facility in Macon for RYDC and YDC girls. Macon is the only all-female facility we have in the state, and it's over 50 years old. This hybrid facility will allow us to actually address the aging issues we're facing at the YDC and increase the number of female youth we're seeing in Middle and South Georgia that's coming into our RYDCs. So part of the issue at Macon, they have the cottage-style housing units, the same as what they had at Muskogee. The difference is that the girls have started picking at the drywall. So now they're self-harming with the drywall. Then we have a gym that has an Olympic-sized pool that we haven't used in over a decade because the youth that we serve today, the pool is just not a part of the programming. We brought in engineers to ask whether or not, because we wanted to drain and fill the pool, but they told us it would cause the building to collapse. Then we have all of the plumbing is underneath. So anytime there's a plumbing issue, you also have to go into the floor. So those are just some of the issues at the YDC. On the RYDC side, we've seen an increase of 30% in our female population and a 24% increase in our male population, like I said, in Middle and South Georgia. So as a result, we have moved all of our females from the Macon RYDC over onto the Macon YDC campus because we had the space to actually do so. Although the hybrid model was not birthed in Georgia, we have been successful in doing this for over the last year and a half almost. And what this will do is give us an opportunity. It solves two issues for us: the aging issue on the YDC side, and also Macon is an overflow area, so you get to bring females from South Georgia RYDCs also to this campus without us asking for a YDC and a RYDC because of the increase in population.
And Commissioner, just the $82 million plus dollars on 380.56 for the new construction, that's something offline, if you could help us. We need a breakdown of that because the number is so big.
Okay.
We need to really get into the covers with that one for the size. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last item is line item 382.413 for security upgrades. We have seen an increase in the number of locks and doors that we've had to replace in our aging facilities over the last year and a half. So we've completed an assessment. And what we would do is take the $5 million to address locks, doors, door frames that we need to change out in some of our most vulnerable facilities.
Okay.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll pause for any questions.
I think you had increased funds for 30 vehicles as well. Is that right?
We did, yes, and so that was moved, I think, to the cash, to cash that we already had in our budget
All right.
for another
Gotcha.
project.
Okay. All right, a lot of information there. I know we interrupted you a few times throughout,
okay.
but other questions for the Commissioner? Senator Robertson.
Yes, ma'am. On the locks.
Yes.
Have you had an audit of the locks?
Yes, so we have not only done an assessment, we've gone around, and so we know in our facilities, we know what type of lock we need to go back and replace.
Okay, who is we go back and replace? Is this bringing in a group to get them all as soon as possible, or is this an ongoing preventive maintenance type program?
It's an ongoing process.
And hearing you earlier, you're having a hard time finding specialists in maintenance?
Yes.
So I know, and we've used the same analogy in the Department of Corrections, you're painting the Golden Gate Bridge. You by the time you get to the end, you're going to have to start back at the beginning and do it again because the at-risk population you have, as you stated earlier, they're starting to pick at the drywall, and these are individuals who typically aren't used to taking care of their own things, so they're certainly not going to take care of something that belongs not to them but to the state. So have y'all developed a plan, a preventive maintenance plan that once you get everything caught up, that we can continue to maintain the property of our taxpayers in a more concise and daily way so that we're not having to come back every couple of years and ask for millions of dollars to go back and fix what's been broken over the few years since the last time?
So we definitely have a list of all of the things that we need to touch in this area around the locks, the doors, and the door frames. I think one of the things that work against us is because we have not been able to address it all at one time. And because we're not able to address it all at one time, then sometimes we get in a situation where it's old, it's no longer
You
one
can't
of-
find the part.
We can't, thank you, you can't
Right.
find the part. And so we even see that on our CCTV cameras. We're having the same issues because it's time to replace those, but we don't have the funding to start that process over. Am I answering your question?
No, ma'am, you're answering your question, and sadly, I think it's a problem we have in a lot of these areas within state government. We get things and don't anticipate the preventive maintenance required on on these ideas. When you talk about the cameras now, and Chairman Albers is much more of an expert in this area than I am, but technology is also outpacing you. And so, are there maintenance contracts on any of this equipment?
Yes.
And is your intention to do all of this work in-house, or is this where we're going to have to write an RFP and bring in an outside company to get you guys corrected as we've done with the Georgia Department of Corrections?
Yes, it will be, we couldn't
Okay.
handle it. We don't have the manpower in-house.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All right, any additional questions for the commissioner? Outstanding job. Yeah, thank you for all that you're doing. I'm sure we'll get a couple follow-up questions with you. And again, if you can send over that breakdown to Jennifer here in the next couple of days, that would be very helpful for us. Okay, as mentioned, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. Stretch your legs, grab your drink, use the bio break, and then we're going to, our poor members of corrections need to go first in the next 4 years to make up for today. We'll be right back. break. We've been going for almost 3 hours straight, and you have been more than patient. So quickly on your cut sheets for the folks in the committee, that's page 6. 6. And I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Oliver and his staff. He brought the whole crew with him here, and appreciate everything you all do. So jump into it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have the PowerPoint? Do you all have the PowerPoint?
There it is.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. Just for the sake of the fluid, to make it fluid, we're going to probably just cover all the adjustments that are going to go across all programs, and then we'll jump into individual line items here. So I'll start with the presentation. GDC appreciates the support of the Governor and the General Assembly in approving increases for CO pay in recent years. With support, we have increased CO entry salaries from $31,000 to $44,000, which has made significant improvements in employee retention. However, based on a comparative salary analysis from Guidehouse, we found that Georgia still lags our neighboring states in the Southeast, and current CO entry level pay is slightly below the state median income. As a result, the Governor is recommending an additional 4% salary increase for COs, raising the starting salary from CO1s to $44,000 to $45,806. This puts Georgia more in line with correctional officer salaries in Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, as well as keeping up with wage inflation. And you kind of see there on the chart where we stand from those states.
Yes, and everybody's got a copy of this as well.
Okay, good. All right, so I'll move on. Next slide is the increased funds provide that 4% salary increase for all correctional officers, staff to improve recruitment and retention. That's for FY26 at $11.9 million. That's spread across all programs that you see there. And the House increased that. It was at $9.6 million. This is based on updated headcount of 3,039 officers from October 2024. Provides a salary increase associated also with the fringe benefits, increased salaries, staff salaries for CO 1s through 3 and CSM 1 through 3, based on that 4% increase for each position type. In addition to the salary increase for recruitment and retention, the governor's budget includes Guidehouse recommendation for more frequent opportunities for pay advancement. The governor has increased the governor's recommendation, and the House increased it from $9.6 million to implement in-grade CO pay enhancements for 5.5% after 6 months. We're doing this so that the COs could feel like they're making progress and incentivizing them to stay. It's also just for pay. Just pay for supervisory levels for security staff to address compression issues, to provide a cleaner career ladder for security staff at $5.6 million, bringing those staff below the levels up to the pay levels, and that's at a total of $9.6 million spread across all programs. Is there a question?
Actually, I will stop you for a moment.
Yes, sir.
It may be in a further slide, but if not, I noticed when I was looking through everything with Jennifer a couple days ago, we had the raises, much deserved, much needed raises for your team. I noticed on the warden levels, though, they weren't getting the same percentage raise. And that concerns me that we would treat a little bit differently for those folks that are the leaders. You have any thoughts on that, Commissioner?
Yes, I want to say I believe that the 5.6, the salary compression, kind of addresses that issue all the way up to the warden level, if I'm not mistaken.
It did not look like they were changing on the numbers we were looking at. Perhaps we missed something.
So for the compression, you're going up to the unit managers and captain and up through those levels. That doesn't affect the warden level.
Okay.
But the warden, there is a big jump between the
unit manager
and up to the warden. There already is a big jump.
And I think that with the in talks with OPB and everything else, I think it's going to be a continuing, ongoing discussion, talking with Senate and House for future budget years as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
To address that.
Hey, Will.
All right, next slide, CO recruitment and to improve the CO ratios to offender ratio. Currently, Georgia's at a 1:14 CO to offender ratio. Guidehouse examined the staffing ratios in neighboring states, and Georgia ranks low on the lower end of that scale comparatively. To bring our field vacancy security staffing to a 1-to-11 ratio, as seen in Arkansas, Mississippi, North Carolina, the goal is to add 882 positions over the next 18 to 24 months. The good news is that we're already making progress towards this goal. So far in this fiscal year, we've seen a net increase of 170 COs through February of this year. FY26 recommendation is to annualize that figure and continue hiring with the goal of getting to a 330 net additional officers by the end of the third quarter of the fiscal year 26. Long term, we plan to continue to work with Guidehouse to determine appropriate staffing ratios based on facility layouts and security levels, which likely may require additional security staff in future fiscal years. This to increase the funding to 45 million spread across all programs. There's increased there. The House increased that from it was originally at 20 million. Just to kind of give you a total, our current total field positions are 3163 within all facility programs, and our goal is to get to 3652 to meet that 1-to-11 ratio. Next slide. During the Guidehouse evaluations, they cited concerns with vacancies in degree positions that provided programmatic services to offenders in non-degree positions like food service, maintenance staff, who are crucial to day-to-day operations. Behavioral health and education programming is essential to keeping prisoners occupied. Idleness and is a heavy contributor to vandalism and violence within facilities. These positions require a 4-year degree, yet pay generally less than COs, lending retention issues. Education staff have more than a 50% vacancy rate, and the loss of staff has correlated with a 50% reduction in GED completions between fiscal years 2019 and FY 2023. First is the increased funds for...
Question, Senator Robertson?
I may have misheard you, but I thought you said food service in there somewhere. Was that
Yes.
Our food service people require a 4-year degree?
No, this is to keep up. This still our behavioral health counselors
Right.
are required that.
No, I understood that. I guess it ran in together as you were talking, and it caught me sideways. I was trying to figure out what type of nutrition. I mean, not speaking ill of the nutrition thing anyway. I think you and I both agree you probably get more thumbs ups and thumbs down based on things like that than you do on behavioral health.
Yeah, they were citing concerns with our non-security positions. I think what I was referencing to our non-security being our behavioral counselor and food service, which they don't require. But they cited concerns with the vacancy levels in those positions.
Okay.
Yes. You see the first increased funds for the salary increase for behavioral health counselor positions to align with statewide averages to improve recruitment and retention, and that's spread across the PDC, state prisons, and transitional center programs at $4.6 million. It was originally at $2.2 million. This impacts a total of 325 behavioral health counselors. Behavioral health counselor 1 position was aligned with the same job title as DJJ. This correlates to an 8% increase for the minimum salary, setting the target salary of $38,577. That 8% increase was then applied to the remaining subsequent job titles to reach the new target salaries. And the House also funded a 10% increase that was self-funded in FY25. So in FY25, we saw a significant reduction of resignations in our behavioral health counselors. So we self-funded the pay raise to stop the bleeding in that job class, and so we self-funded that 10% for the House.
And if I could, Commissioner, I don't want to interrupt your flow, but I think what you're going to see throughout the budget, just for the committee members' understanding, is for a long time, through a lack of positions that we needed to fill, we were using those dollars to take care of other things, such as raises, et cetera. So it was use existing funds, use existing funds. We also had another issue, which was some of our contracts we'll hear about later were based off a certain prison population, which was way too low. So those two things combined is great news. You and your team have gotten hiring going in a great place through a combination of culture and raises, et cetera. But now, not only do we have those positions fully funded, but now we also have to account for their raise. And in our contracts, the same way, is it has to be the contract based on the number of people that are under our supervision in the prison system. So as you see some of these big numbers, I want the committee to understand is some of this is just catching up with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Isn't that one of the problems we run into when, and I know when I say it, you think, I mean, a lot of people think I'm calling their children ugly, but when we get away from zero-based budgeting, we run into these problems where we have these funded positions we cannot fill, and we, upon our own, move that funding out of there, move it into somewhere else, and then when things do start getting better, we're left with a lot of open positions and no money to pay. And
You couldn't have said it better, Senator. I agree. This is why zero-based budgeting is so important, not for just our friends here under the public safety umbrella, but across the entire state.
yes, sir, thank you.
Amen.
All right. And just see down there, education, chaplaincy, food service, fire service, and maintenance has increased by 4% salary increase for them at $2.4 million. That was increased by the House. It was at $1.8 million. The House expanded the increase for maintenance and additional positions to add added for fire services, pay raises to all those positions at a 4% increase. Educational programming, while GDC custody, offenders can receive their GED received from the technical colleges. As you know, the technical colleges provide that. It's an hourly rate went up from $20 to $25. That's reflected across the detention centers, state prisons, and transitional centers at $805,000. Likewise, a behavioral health contract for detention centers and state prisons at $250,000, and that's spread across all that. That was a pay raise for the counselor positions for the RSAT program and that respective program for RSAT. Utility costs. All this was added by the House. Thankfully, looking at the House, we asked this committee to respectfully consider this. As you can see, there was a $14.4 million ask. For the last fiscal years, our utility expenses, especially in our state prison program, have exceeded our budget. In addition, in fiscal years, the overall expenses continue to climb due to a large part of rate increases approved by Georgia Power and other utility companies. While we've been able to cover the deficit with other state funds in prior fiscal years due to excess of personal services, which we just talked about, Mr. Chairman, we're no longer to do so. So we're asking to support the House recommendation at $14.4 million to support the utility cost increase in the detention center, state prisons, and transitional centers.
And Commissioner, this is when we have to drill down for a moment too, and this does get back
Yes.
to, I think, Senator Robertson's point. You know, as we analyze utility costs, which were going up every year, and then we budgeted them to be way down here, I think we set a false precedence when we do things like that, and this might be a discussion with OPB as well as you all and Jennifer and I in the room. We need to go through that because, to me, this is even more out of line than even using funding for raises for budgets. At least that's personnel. In this case, we took something where we knew we were going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars short because we knew the utilities weren't going down, but yet we dropped it a significant amount of money. And, you know, here we are spending $14.5 million because we put a false number in there. And again, this might be a conversation we need to have with Director Dunn and OPB folks and you all together, but that's the stuff that we as a state just can't do anymore. That I don't think we're being forthright in the budgeting process if we are not showing the right number that's there. So again, I'm going to ask Jennifer to get with Director Dutton and the people that help out on their side, and for us to have a meeting probably on Monday or Tuesday to handle that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
And to redistribute central repair funds, as you all know, this is going to zero overall impact on the budget, but we're taking some of that $2.2 million out of state prisons to support the detention centers and transitional centers repairs and maintenance. So we took some of it out to address the much needed repairs and maintenance in our detention centers and transitional centers. Yes, ma'am. Departmental admin, you'll see there existing operational needs. The House adds $1.9 million. That's for recruitment and retention and advertising contract that we have currently. Obviously, you see that it's going well. We're going to still be working with them to kind of fine tune some of the advertisements for our recruitment strategies to make sure that we're honing in on the areas in which we need to hone in on to meet that 1-to-11 ratio.
But
that
it
the
has been
governor's
working
saying.
based on your hiring and retention as of this point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Senator Robertson.
Is funding being spent with a third-party vendor?
It is.
Okay. And what's the annual cost on that currently?
The current contract's $4 million for the advertising, and then it's another about 2.5 for the recruitment or the retention piece, the culture partners.
Okay. And when you say the advertising, that's those commercials I see on my smart TV? God bless you guys.
Maybe some billboards, stuff like that too.
Yeah, I have seen some billboards
Yeah,
too.
got to keep a certain senator in business.
Yes. And then you see right there at 114.8, but in your PowerPoint, McCray Women's Facility administrative costs of the House added in at $917,000, and the Smith TC additional dorm administrative costs at $84,000.
Well, let's talk about McCray because we've
Yes.
always spent a lot of money in getting that, well, I guess newer facility as we purchased it online that I got to see thanks to Al and I literally running into each other in lunch one day. But tell me what the differential, the cost, and why those dollars were added for McCray.
Oh, I didn't want to take that for the administrative costs. Is that personnel?
I'll let Jackson speak to that. Jackson worked with the House on that. so.
All right, come on up, Jackson. You can go right over there. I'll give you more room, and I'll get you microphone number 12 hot. And for those that don't know in the committee, just a quick update. So McCray, which is currently, people are moving over from Lee Arundel and others, is the new diagnostic prison for women. So everybody's familiar with Jackson State. That's where all the guys go. All the assessments are done. Some stay there, but most get sent off based on that classification of the prisons. Lee Arundel was our female diagnostic prison, very old, very out of date. It's going to shrink down to a tiny little transition center. And McRae was a prison that we purchased with a pretty significant sum not too long ago and have been working on. So why don't you give us a quick update on what these costs are associated with?
Yes, sir. So what we're seeing is basically when we've done something like this in the past, we look at our cost per day, and our cost per day is actually, directly associated to that facility, kind of like a direct cost to run that facility, but we're not looking at everything else that it takes to run that facility. And our cost per day, we have it broken down by admin, health, administration, health, and offender management. All those other programs have to increase or have to work extra to run that facility. So that's where that factor's coming in. Is we're kind of looking at it as a cost per day standpoint. Is that it's basically what it takes for the rest of the organization to run that facility.
Okay, and I'm not necessarily opposing what you're saying here. I guess my question is, we've been working on this for the last 2 years. We had planned, for all the capital purchase, the capital improvements, the staffing, et cetera. It just seems a little odd that now we're here, we're getting actually inmates that are moved in there, and now there's almost another $1 million. So that's where I think our concern is coming from. Hopefully you understand that we'd have thought we'd have planned for that in the last couple of years.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I agree. But we're seeing the cost, and we knew it was there, so we want to make sure we were right, and we're starting off on a better foot than what we had. So we wanted to address it instead of running into a deficit every year with a new facility.
Excellent. And I realize we're going through a big change right now, both through getting reports and the assessments done, getting people hired, everything caught up. And this is going to be the year we're going to call even, when we're all done. But moving forward, we have to start looking at everything on a 3 to 5 year basis. We have to start doing things completely different the way we're looking at the budget. And this is not just you, it's people before you, it's the people that work in the building across the street, et cetera. But this is the biggest part of this part of the budget, and it's the third largest line item in the entire state budget. So we're all very cognizant of that. So,
Sir, can I add something?
You certainly can.
That's what we did when we looked at this. We looked at everything. So in the past, it's been kind of more of we have a history of looking at more narrow focus just at that facility. But that's why we have this. You'll see it in other slides as well. Okay. We have stuff in health for McRae and adding other at Smith.
Okay, and we've got a question from Senator Robertson.
Yeah, and to that, though, if in any other part I've been in, whether it's crime prevention, whether we always use historical data, and we try to anticipate, and in many cases we anticipate to the black instead of anticipate to the red. And so when it comes time, we never catch up to the red. We're always just right there in good. It gets thin sometimes where we get close. So my feeling about, what the chairman just said is it just seems like we go in here blind and we put these numbers in 12 months out when we really should be looking 5 years back and 5 years forward. And we're in a profession, all of us that we have the data that can predict this a lot of times. I mean, our laws are 16s and 40s. They're static. We know they're not going to change that much. And we can look at societal behavior and run all those numbers in and get close to where we need to be. And so it's just really disappointing when you see these crazy numbers jumping up there. And to the chairman's point, this is a balance. Please don't anticipate this kind of correction every year because we can't afford it. It's crazy. Yeah, and again, I know this is a pretty new team, and I know the commissioner very well, and so I hope moving forward y'all will do that the right way.
That's what we're working to do, sir.
All right, let's keep going. Thank you.
All right. Food and farm operations, again, the House added 5.1 million to food and farm. As you can see, there's a 40% increase in direct food costs per day for offenders from FY 2020 to FY 2024 as projected. Days covering additional costs associated with food service contracts for operational and transportation expenses. Food costs for additional beds at our facilities and BCOT. And you can see that breakdown there on the screen, so I won't belabor the point and read it to you. But definitely much needed again. I think food and farm they haven't received an increase in quite some time.
Do we have some chickens on that farm? Because eggs are getting pretty good. We can make some money back.
We do
okay.
have chickens. We do have eggs.
All right.
All right. Offender management, you see the $6 per diem increase that the House added in at $9.9 million to increase the per diem rate for the county prisons from $24 to $30 per day.
Yes, I got a question from Senator James.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you add inflation when you're asking for something? Because things are always even if I built a house, but a few months later, when the house is complete, it could have doubled or 1/3 more or something. So I know it's some kind of scale that you could look at and say, well, we got to put inflation. And then if you ask for that amount rather than the amount that it costs right today, wouldn't that make a difference with what we've been talking about?
Well, I certainly agree. We have to always adjust for inflation, Senator James. And of course, we've seen 45-year high inflation over the last several years, which has been significant.
It's going to be even more now that the tariffs, metals and so many things are going to be increased. So we're going to be able to, need to look at that, right?
We'll have to see what happens here moving forward. Good news is this quarter inflation actually went down for the first time in about 4 years, but we'll see. If it could go back up, no, it's anybody's guess right now, but we do have to watch that. All right.
I just wanted to make sure
All right.
that since they're asking for something,
Sure.
we want them to, ask for more or whatever.
It's a reasonable question.
That they look at that.
Absolutely. I know they are.
All right. Next set of recommendations are related to our health care program, and health contracts that are utilized to ensure that those under the state's custody maintain physical, dental, and mental health. Contract increases during COVID, our offender population maintained stable due to court shutdowns. As courts move through the backlog, our population increased, resulting in additional funding needed for the following contracts. It goes without saying that the cost of health in the health sector has risen, and the medical needs of our offenders have continued to grow and diversify as our population ages. As you see in 117.4, the increased funds for our physical health contract to support the increased population at 20.3 million.
And I don't want to interrupt your flow. I apologize, but this is, I think, what I was telling everybody earlier. I want everybody to get understanding because these are big
Correct.
numbers. Because of the way we were using funds earlier, we were not accounting for the total number of offenders you have. What's the approximate number you've got in-house right now?
In state prisons, for this particular contract, we're looking at about 42,000.
Okay, but what was it based on versus what was
38.
there? Okay, 38. So we're talking about, a significant difference in the amount of people. So when you see these numbers, know that part of this is we have to account for the number of people that are actually having to provide medical, pharmacy, dental, mental, et cetera. So that's your biggest part of your cost is the right numbers, right?
Correct. It's the contract's based on the tiered system, based on the offender population per day.
Absolutely. And I know you want to go through each one of these individually. You don't need to.
Okay.
But I know we had a conversation, you, Alan, and I did, and I want to follow back up with that early next week on the pharmacy stuff.
Yes.
Because I've looked at some of that initial contract stuff and where it is now, and I still have a concern with that.
And we can definitely get you some of that probably before you leave today.
That'd be great.
All right. Don't know if you want to just go through each of one, but one of the biggest changes also was the mental health. As you know, our mental health population continues to increase. We're sitting at about 26% of the total population on mental health caseload. Mental health is at 22.2. That was an increase from the House from 8 million. And that was to add an additional 56 FTEs to the contract, and also provide a 4% salary increase to support the mental health clinicians that come behind the wire to provide that service to our much needed population. And I can move along also, but the ongoing issue, maintenance costs with our EHR solution.
Which will solve the problem forever, right?
It should.
Amen.
Yes, it has us.
Wonderful.
And then the healthcare, as you talked about, talking about looking forward into the future, the healthcare contract increase for McCray at $998,000 to account for additional full-time physical health employees there when we open that up, or it is opened up. Private prisons, as you know, they're very good partners of ours, so I won't go through each slide there. But the biggest thing, I'll just go through the changes from the House, is the per diem increase at $13.6 million. That's going to be spread across all of the 4 private prisons. Our 2 companies, CoreCivic and Geo, to provide the per diem increase for that, and then also pay parity for also their behavioral health counselors, and also the pay parity for educational chaplain service, food service maintenance workers, kind of to align with what we did for our 4%, 8% increase there, and the pay parity, the COLA in FY25 for that at $28.5 million.
And if I could, Commissioner, what I want to do, because again, these are very big numbers, is I believe we've got some of our partners with CoreCivic and Geo here in the audience, and I'd like to give each one of them a chance to come up to the podium and say a few words. So let's begin with CoreCivic. He got you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jerry Langford with CoreCivic. Again, Mr. Chairman, members, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I will say, interesting as I watched the department go through the presentation, obviously there are a lot of areas that are probably long overdue and needing to be addressed, and certainly support what they're receiving. I will tell you that is very consistent with what we're seeing in other states as well in managing that type of population, and then also dealing with CPI increases. But our message is pretty simple. I think I've spoken with you, Mr. Chairman, other members of the committee, in that we would just ask that you hold what the House has put in. That is consistent with what we have requested in all of those different areas. So I'll just leave it there and keep it very simple, and certainly happy to answer any questions you all have around any of that. I guess the last thing I would say, specifically as it relates to the contractual increase, as we've discussed, I think, many times, and I think you and some of the other members of the committee have seen me for years talk about needing an increase for the contracts. And as I watch a lot of these costs going up, and I look at our per diems and what we've been paid for the last 10 or 15 years not increase, it makes it very, very difficult to manage these facilities, and it's gotten to a critical point. Do want to say we very much appreciate the pay parity increases that have been given over the last 3 years. I will tell you all of that money has gone to the employees at those facilities, and so do appreciate that. But all of these other costs that, again, the department's gone through some of them, with DOC facilities, those are the costs that we bear, and all of that is paid out of the per diem that you all give us. So with that, Mr. Chairman, certainly happy to answer any questions related to any of these line items.
Thank you, Jerry. I don't see any. I appreciate it. Let's let your friends at Geo Group come up as well.
Perfect. Thanks, sir.
Just for the record, I picked alphabetical order, but you know, you guys can work that one out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Emmanuel Barr, Geo Group. Mr. Chairman, thanks again for the opportunity to share. And also, thank you, all the members of the committee, particularly your staff who've been very diligent in doing the behind-the-scenes work and gathering the information that the House needed in order to substantiate the request and the ask that we had over the last several weeks and months. And of course, going backward, as Mr. Langford established, going back several years, asking for this particular increase, only to have it not met. So, echoing my counterpart from Core Civic, that you, as we say in the Army, hold the line of the House's recommendation. And I think you said it earlier too, Chairman, 45-year high inflation. It doesn't just affect other industries, but as we are experiencing here today in the recommendation from Commissioner Oliver, it affects the prison industry as well. And Jerry also talked about how this affects other states. We also see the pay parity requests and the draw against staffing in this industry. As you know, McDonald's might pay you $15 or $20, and then you have the opportunity to make $15, $20 as a correctional officer. A lot of people are drawn to McDonald's. And so I commend Commissioner Oliver for making sure that we are getting the pay parity in our facilities. And I think we have the numbers unbundled with your staff that reflect the $5 million increase. And I won't bore you with some of those, but the two things I want to highlight are, as Commissioner Oliver stated earlier, medical, $1.5 million for medical. This represents the total increase from 2018 to 2025 in the projection, and it includes both labor and non-labor medical costs. The largest, and you referenced this earlier, Mr. Chairman, the largest of our increase in non-labor is pharmacy. So we're seeing some challenges there with the cost of $250,000. Food services, depreciation and maintenance, your staff has the specifics. If you need any more information, you guys know how to reach me. If you have any other questions at this time, I'm happy to answer.
I got a question from Senator Robertson.
I got a quick comment, and listen, I'm always going to be the advocate for the unpaid or underpaid state employee. But we have to stop comparing it with the McDonald's thing, because we offer benefits in this state. Most municipal police departments, fire departments, law enforcement agencies, and others offer retirement plans, offer other opportunities for individuals that they would not get at McDonald's. And so I want to be clear that we offer really good benefits. We offer average pay, and we're losing people.
Yeah.
Nobody's leaving us and going to work at McDonald's for 30 hours a week because McDonald's not going to pay them full-time wages. But we're losing them into the private sector for better pay and better benefits in many cases. And so we have to start comparing apples to apples to this. I agree with what you say, but let's be very on top of the table with our statements and the promotion of this, so we don't ever get caught behind the eight ball.
I respect that. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner, continue on, and I want to make sure everybody understands from our committee. The private prisons, our partners there, are under the direction of Commissioner Oliver and his staff. They work together as a team. And I know sometimes it's easy for all of us to say, well, maybe we should just go ask them. Everything needs to start with the commissioner and then work its way out to all of our contractors and partners. They're great contractors and partners. We love working with them, but we need to make sure we keep it all together.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before I move over to private prisons, I know there's one additional on the addition to the 500 prison beds to the existing contract. It was at 446. Of course, you know, we're starting to dry dock and try to move some of our state inmates out and to the private prison so we can start these much needed renovations and lock replacements. And so that's going to support that. The House increased that from 446 to 500 as we can probably identify those additional beds to expedite that process a little bit more.
Excellent. Thank you.
State prisons and safety security technology initiatives, body cameras and tasers. As you know, today the department utilizes body cameras and tasers that have been in service for up to a decade. without uniformity in the device's use. This requires knowledge of multiple systems and for evidence retrieval and advanced age brings devices. The officers can't just use them with confidence. The operability of the devices is critical in critical moments.
And I have a question on that. We spent a lot of money in the amended budget for these type of things.
Annualizes that.
So this is annualizing. What is this, a support cost for those and the camera storage and things of that nature? Is that what this is?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's the ongoing, it's a subscription. After the
Yes,
first
that's what I
year.
thought. Okay, yeah. Okay, just
So
making sure.
Moving on for that, if you're good with that. All
Yep.
right. And the same thing with officer tablets and the mail screening solution, definitely to prevent contraband from getting in from that.
Certainly.
This is a force multiplier here with our digital forensic unit and Overwatch unit and data intelligence at 9.8 that the House added in as for continued favorable. It was also an annualizing from the amended budget. As you know, contraband and coming into facilities with our cell phones is definitely an issue. The FCC had an order to effective January 1 that we can no longer use those telephone fees to do that. So this is also that 4.1 is to annualize that to continue our digital forensic unit so we can analyze those cell phones that we're confiscating from inside the facilities. Overwatch unit and logistic unit, that's definitely again it's going to be a force multiplier for GDC and members out there in the fields. A 24-hour real-time crime center, for lack of better words, for our response teams down.
And I
in the
really
field.
like this technology. I think it's you guys are really taking a great innovative approach, and we funded that in
Correct.
the amended.
Correct.
Why did it not come through the governor's recommended? Do you know?
It wasn't initially in the governor's recommendations.
Oh, because you added it
Correct.
before the budget was put
The
in.
Hou-
Okay,
yeah,
I understand now.
there you go.
I got you.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Again, without belaboring the point, I know we've met several times on our capital repairs and maintenance, but I will go through them if you have any questions at the 34. I know it's a lot of money, at 34.2 million, but as I previously discussed in our several meetings over the summer and during the joint hearings and things of that nature, we have much needed capital repairs in most of our state prisons. And all this money is going to go to replacing much needed locks for boilers and HVAC systems, plumbing, things of that nature, and also to have the Tiger teams and the critical maintenance staff to support that, skilled craftsmen to go ahead and support all of those infrastructure needs that we have.
Right, and those, some of these things got moved to the back to the capital portion. There is on the 15 million for the critical capital maintenance and repairs. And this could be an offline follow-up, but we know we funded a lot of that stuff in the last budget, in the amended versus this budget. And I didn't see a breakdown of all that stuff. I think that might be coming from Guidehouse, I'm not sure. But we need some more breakdowns in that area,
Okay.
if we can get that over to Jennifer so we can look through that.
Yes.
I do want to let everybody in the committee know, we were woefully behind on capital maintenance and projects, and long before most of us were here, well, exception for Senator Harbison, he's been here a little longer, but he wasn't here either. We have not, and while we're starting to add some stuff, we got some great new things in the process. We're going to have to spend a lot of money in the future years and build probably quite a few whole new prisons in order to keep up with this, because we have a real aging population of facilities. So I want everybody to understand that, so in a couple of years from now, we're not sitting here with our jaws dropped. This is the pre-warning for all of us. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, appreciate it. Any questions on that before I move forward? I know.
As long as I can blame Senator Harbison, because he was here all these years ago.
Yeah. There's a lot of deferred maintenance.
We're just poking fun at the dean. Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of deferred maintenance, but we could definitely get you that list to support that. Next in state prisons is bed management. Transfer offenders into federal custody. It was a House amendment of $474,000. Currently, we have offenders that we charge inside of our state, inside the state prisons, and working with our federal partners who continue to commit crimes through contraband cell phones or other means, and they usually sit in our custody until the feds won't take them. I think it would be beneficial to actually send them to the feds, to send a message to them, because a lot of them are have nothing to lose. A lot of them are lifers, life without. To send them over there, but there's a cost to that until they're actually convicted or found guilty in federal court. So awaiting trial, they can sit there, and this will be to pay for at least 13 offenders to go to federal custody that we know that we have identified currently that are ready to go, awaiting federal sentences.
That's great. And we talked to pardons and paroles earlier, and I believe they're working with you all to look at the nonviolent offenders who could be deported via ICE who are here illegally.
Yes, sir.
That will hopefully make a little bit of an impact as well. I realize that we have less violent people than we do more violent these days, but anything will help, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then you'll see also in the transitional centers, Miss Smith TC, an additional 100-bed opening. Didn't anticipate that cost coming in. Right now, I know it's a house change at $2.7 million. We had a lot of issues down there when it comes to the soil and things of that nature. So now we got a better timeline that will be online in fiscal year 26. So we're asking for that cost to add additional 100 beds to the transitional center down there.
Okay.
You and I, you're about to go.
Well, we came in together. We might as well be here together.
We're almost done, Senator. So
That's all right.
All right, and then these are just statewide adjustments. I don't know, if, Mr. Chairman, if you want to go through those, but these are statewide adjustments at
don't need to.
2.3.
No, we're fine
All right,
there.
and then you'll see the department, the overview as is 250.1 million for the FY26.
A little rounding error, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, look,
And then
ahead.
one last thing, we want to talk
Please.
about the two capital projects, the long-term acute care unit at Johnson State Prison. I think this is going to be very important. If you let me just take just a brief minute
Please.
to mention this.
Go right ahead.
As mentioned before, GDC is facing increased costs of outside-the-wire care. The governor's recommendation is to target one of the largest medical expenses departments facing long-term acute care. Currently, these offenders must stay in medical facilities to receive treatment and monitoring, costing the department about $2,000 per offender per day in healthcare costs and diverting up to 44 correctional officers per shift that otherwise would be stationed inside the facility. The LTAC unit will allow offenders to stay inside the wire while receiving the necessary care from GDC staff and reducing the number of staff needed to accompany them outside the wire. This brings an additional staff back in-house to address critical staffing needs and substantially reduces the daily cost for long-term acute care unit. So that's at $6.2 million. The return on investment, currently we're spending about $16 million a year on that, so I think it's very good return on investment to pay for it in its first year. By doing that, and also, again, bringing those officers back.
And let me ask you a question on that. Have you all been following up with pardons and parole, specifically on those folks that may or may not have had those extraordinary medical conditions when they
Correct.
came in the wire? Is it, are they at a place now it doesn't make sense for them to be in the wire based on that? Just trying to figure that out to make sure we're doing the right thing, both for them but also for us.
Absolutely, yeah. We send referrals over for the medical reprieves, which you're speaking about. We send them over to pardons and parole. I can't speak to the exact number that actually gets approved, but we know we send those over to them. They have a criteria that they have to follow before they're able to give that medical reprieve. It's about 20% that we send over.
Okay.
They get reprieved.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alan.
And then also, the McRae facility completion, we talked about that was a shortfall in that, about $15.5 million. And that's to finish up the McRae, of course. We had some roof replacement stuff that we weren't anticipating there, control room fire, some flooding after some of the storms. And so that's just in addition those funds to go ahead and make sure that those projects are complete, which they are.
And how many inmates now, Commissioner, do we have over there?
100.
100?
136.
Okay.
I forgot we had
And
transfer yesterday.
what's the duration for
Today.
getting the remainder over there and it being fully operational?
We anticipate having every inmate transferred by August.
Okay, great.
April will be probably a halfway point for us.
Okay, great. We'll be coming down with the committee. That'll probably be one of the multiple places we'll come and do a
I
field
was
trip
just
on.
there again this past week, Monday. So talked to some of the ladies down there, and they seem to enjoy the.
Well, I think it's a first-class operation.
Yeah, considering where they're at, they
Yeah,
seem
especially
to enjoy it.
from Lee Arundel.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right.
Okay, this was a lot. First, don't mistake our tough questions with the fact that we don't appreciate everything that you're doing in spades. You have been through a very challenging time. Nobody could have predicted a 100-year pandemic that threw everything aside, nor 45-year high inflation, multiple natural disasters, a whole group of people that decided they didn't want to work anymore and trying to get them back to the workforce, as well as a massively increased violent population. All things completely out of your control, but you had to handle it. And what people don't understand every day is the little war you're having to fight. You're totally outmanned and behind the wire in doing that. but we do. And while I'm sad, I don't see too many press folks here in the room today, but I wish they would actually report the 999 good things rather than the one bad thing, because what your folks are doing each and every day is remarkable. And it's time that we started reporting some of the really good news that's happening. The people who work for corrections directly, as well as all the numerous partners that are both here and not here today. So let me finish this entire long meeting, which you were very patient to wait at, by giving you a very sincere thank you, and thank you again. And we'll look forward to working together to continue to make Georgia a safest place for the people on the outside and the people serving inside.
Yes, sir. And thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to ask one last question because Jennifer pointed it to me before I left.
All right.
Even if we fund everything on this budget, every last dollar, are you going to have a shortfall?
I don't think so. Not with everything that's funded now.
You're on camera, just remember, I'm just kidding.
We're being in a very good place.
All right, thank you all very much.
Can I ask them one question?
You can ask one question, but then we're going to let everybody go.
I want to go too. But I was reading about another state, and they were, they didn't have that much staff. They had a lot of people that were gone. So they started using drones to go and check on certain things. I was wondering if we did that here in Georgia. Do we do that?
We're not utilizing drones per se. We have people using drones to introduce contraband into our facilities. But what I can tell you that we're using other camera technology, other technology to supplement the staffing issues.
Yeah, I noticed you said that you were using the cameras.
Correct.
So
and then
they're
our
on
Overwatch unit that you all funded and supported will definitely help once we get that stood up to have more eyes and ears around the state inside the facilities.
Well, I just thought it was the drones.
Mm-hmm.
I said, are we doing that too? Because they said that since the staff was half of what they used to have, and they couldn't get a lot of people.
And to your point, I think and I think you make a good point. It's not a Georgia issue. It's a national issue when it comes to correctional shortages. And so everybody collectively, and my counterparts across the nation, are coming up with innovative ways to make sure that we keep everyone safe.
And I know you're working with all your counterparts as
Thank
well.
you.
So, all right,
Yes, sir.
thank you all very much. This meeting's hereby adjourned.
Thank you.